it on the wrong thing. It was meant to be. I'll just fade that out. Sorry, I was just finishing my chocky. And I've still got my tea. Oh, the bot is running. Cool. So I set that up alright then. It's been a while since I've streamed, so obviously I forgotten how all this works. Yeah, I thought I had the starting screen up and clearly not. So what's going on? Just finishing my tea. I'll give people a chance to get online because yeah, I did mean to. I thought I put it on like ultra low latency as well, but I can see that there's still a bit of a delay. So you know, whatever. Oh, that's so funny that I've already messed things up. And you know, I've just been sitting here twiddling my chocolate, not realizing I'm online. Anyway, so let me just check that everything. Where's the stream health thing? Stream is healthy! Stream health is excellent. Okay, great. So I've gotten that much sorted. If anyone is watching, please let me know if you can hear things right, because it has been a while. I think I've got the audio on the right microphone. And yeah, okay. So, what's been going on? What was the first thing I wanted to talk about? Hey, everything sounds and looks great. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the title of this stream, Patron Saint of Plague Day live stream, because, yeah, you know, it's that day, and I'm wearing, this is the right shirt for me to be wearing today. I'm prickly on the inside too, and that's why I've got all the spikes, because, yeah, fun stuff not being part of the mainstream, and, yeah, having to see a lot of advertising come up, and it's just like, but, no, which side do I need to be on? This side? Hey, I set it up alright. So, there's this little section on patronage. I don't know how accurate this is, because it doesn't really say necessarily, but yeah, so obviously couples, marriages, but it's also about fainting and beekeepers and, well, apparently the mentally ill, which I haven't heard, and when you look up the patron saint of mentally ill, you get someone else, so I don't know how that got there. But plague! Oh, that was not a nice picture. And also epilepsy. And I have no idea, I think that's a location. So, we're celebrating plague, I guess. Ooh, I don't want to keep looking at that. Thanks Wikipedia for bringing things up. Anyway, while I have the internet open, I'll just like plug my merch. Hey, thank you people who've bought it. I want to make more. I will get onto that at some point. What else did I say I was going to do in this stream? I probably should keep open the thing that tells me what my own description was. Because I wrote that a few hours ago when I was like, hey, maybe I should do a live stream, and just suddenly come up with something, and yeah, what did I say? Oh, some gifts to myself, some updates, and rambling about whatever's going on. Oh, okay, so like psychology and stuff, I guess. I don't know, what should I start with? Should I start off with gifts to myself or the psychology situation? I'm really not sure like, you know, how I feel about the whole psychology thing. I know I made a video, how long ago was that? I'm sorry, I'm really bad at keeping track of what I've been talking about. Here comes Hopi. Hopi, good boy, did you enjoy your dinner? Yeah! He's probably like, why are you so chirpy all of a sudden? I don't know why I'm chirpy all of a sudden. I think because I got caught off guard munching my chocolate and still sipping my tea. Gifts to myself as a warm-up, then psychology as it's a deeper topic. Yeah, you're right, because I could get into a bit of a ramble there. Well, first thing, okay, so so far I've only mentioned this to Scribe Chronicler because we were messaging earlier. If I can remember where I put it. finally got my PO box keys. And that is a rant on its own. I actually paid for my PO box. So I've got 2 keys. That one, I've got one on my keyring, and the other one I'm just keeping in my wallet for the moment. I'll find a place for that to live. Anyway, yeah, so what happened with the PO box, I actually paid for it at the start of the month. And then the website came up with this thing. I've got a screenshot, but I haven't set it up to show you all that. It said, it said it sent me an email confirmation and a tax invoice, and that I had to take the tax invoice and some ID to the post office to be able to get my keys. But nothing ever came through. And I've been on this annoying backwards and forwards with customer service. They also said they'd send me a mail redirection form, which I don't need because I'm mainly using it as a return address. Because, you know, I don't want to put where I live as my return address, and I was using the studio. That was my old studio. I've now moved everything back home. I'm still setting it up, though, because things keep happening, and some days I just don't function. Last night I actually finally slept okay, and so I'm functioning okay today. I'm like, yeah, let's do a live stream, but I've had a lot of days where I've just had no energy, and it's been terrible. But yeah, no, so I need the return address, bought the box. I was able to choose what number I want and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, they just never sent me the confirmation. So then I sent them through they've got like an online customer service thing, and they were actually really fast at getting back to me, which is surprising because, you know, often dealing with these, I don't know, I just have a low opinion of certain organizations. But yeah, no, they got back pretty fast. But the guy wasn't really that helpful, and then in the end he said, you know, we can see that you've paid, but something's gone wrong. We'll get the PO box team to contact you in 5 business days. 5 business days go by and nothing. But I think he sort of confirmed that, you know, it was in my account, and I could see it was in my account, but I never got the confirmation of the tax invoice. So I put in another one, and then yesterday I got a call. I told them not to call, but they called to confirm my email, and they said, oh, we're finally going to send you the tax invoice, and they sent it to me as an SVG file. Which I can open with Illustrator, but there was something missing from it, and so I couldn't read it anyway. And like, not everyone has Adobe Illustrator. So what were they thinking sending this type of file? And like, yesterday I sent one back saying, you've sent it to me, but it's not in a file I can open. Didn't get any response today. Probably they have no idea what to do with me. So I just called their line. And the only reason I was able to call today, I think, is because I'm doing better today, because I slept okay, and a few other, you know, I'm just not particularly stressed. I mean, I guess I think I am, but anyway, I could go on a mental health ramble, but, where was I? Yeah, no, I called. I finally had the energy to call. I think maybe that was when I was talking to Scribe Chronicler, actually. He checked in on me, and I was just like, yeah, you know, what's going on with that? And I just realized I don't have my little thing to put people's names on this one. Anyway, I will sort that out later. Yeah, I think he checked on me about, you know, what's going on, because I haven't really posted on Patreon much this month because I've been moving the studio stuff, and then it's taking so long because I keep having bad days, and, you know, getting the whole PO box thing sorted so I can send him some stuff and put that as my return address. And I just thought, you know what, screw it, I'm doing okay today, I'm going to call them. And I called the line, and when I'm annoyed. I don't experience anger, though, and so when obviously things have gone to shit and the customer service people are trying to deal with me, instead of getting angry at them, I've noticed the thing that I try and do these days is I will ask the person on the other end of the phone who clearly knows that everything's screwed up. I say, can you put in some feedback for me with the relevant team about this issue? I don't know if they ever do it, but that's my way of saying, like, I'm actually pretty pissed off with this stuff, but I'm in this sort of, like, I don't know, really diplomatic kind of way, and I think this is my way of handling that, because, like, the idea of being angry, it's not my style, and it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I think I'm very conflict averse, and so that's the way I do it, is like, can you put in some feedback with this team and this team? So the website team, but also the lady on the phone was saying, actually, all you need is your ID. You don't actually need this tax invoice. And I'm like, someone could have told me that earlier. Why didn't they? so she can put in some feedback about that too. And I also added more to my online, my online case about like, what are you people doing to me? So it's halfway through the month and I finally got my PO box. I think I'll do a video about introducing that, because at the moment I'm using it as my return address, but I know if on the off chance that someone wants to send me stuff, I need to set down some ground rules, because I don't want people sending inappropriate things and whatever. So yeah, I'll make a video with some of the rules, and I'll also post that, like, my address on Patreon ahead of time as well. I just haven't got around to it today because it's been, after that and then setting up the stream, and then Mum and I have had our own little Valentine's thing because Dad's out, and so it's just us two and Mikey, and we had, so on the way back from the post office, I got, how do you pronounce Guylian? Guylian? Is that did that send properly? How do you pronounce that? Guylian? I don't even know. Whatever that chocolate, they make the shells. Yeah, okay, so it's not just me. That makes me feel better anyway. But yeah, it's like they have the, I wonder if I can Google, Guyan. Okay, so maybe it's like French or some kind of language that just has too many silent letters. Anyway, so I got some of them. They were 25% off, and it was like, usually it's just the seashells one, but this was like opus or something. I'd never seen them before, and it had a little heart one, and I thought, oh, I'll get that for Mum. Something like that. Haven't thought of it in a while. Yeah, and I also got lint, because lint was 50% off, and I've worked out if you get the ones that are like in the tall box, so not any of the flat boxes, the tall box, you get the most chocolate per dollar. It's like the best value, so I get them. And also the silver one has like dark chocolate and double chocolate and milk chocolate, and only one thing with anything to do with white chocolate, and I don't like white chocolate, so when my brother comes to visit, I'll just give him the white chocolate ones. Yeah, so I got her that 50% off lint and 25% off Guyan, whatever, however you pronounce it. So that's another little present, and that was the little lint ball I was eating at the beginning when I thought I had the start screen on when I didn't. Yeah, and then we had Thai as well for dinner, and so I'm a little bit full, but hopefully I will survive without going into a food coma. Did I finish my tea yet? Oh, I better get my water bottle as well, just for, I keep forgetting that when I haven't talked in a while, my throat does get a bit like, and even I noticed, like, I haven't done much singing, and so there was one day when I was trying to set up the other room to be my studio, when I was singing, my voice did start getting a bit like, what a sounds. Okay, so PO box, bit of a rant and a ramble there. It is set up finally. I have the keys. I've tested both the keys, and yeah, I will get onto making some official thing about that. In the meantime, it'll go up on Patreon. I've already sent it to Scribe Chronicler. Yeah. Oh, not sure what Gaylian? It's like looks like alien, but I don't know what an upside down E means. Whatever it is, like, I'm glad we have the chat thing so I can write it in there, and then you know what I sort of mean. So the Guylian or Gulian or Galian, I don't know, whatever that is, that's the chocolate, and also lint. I love lint. And yeah, the Galian shell alien ones, it's nice. Like, it's kind of odd because at first it doesn't seem that sweet, but then, like, you get through it and you're like, actually, this is really nice. So it's just a weird experience. Whereas, like, lint, lint is just like, wow. But this one is more of a, like, woo. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, no, it was actually tasty. I had the one that was like it was a pyramid with a little sphinx in it. I think it was like some kind of truffle thing. I don't even know what truffle means, to be honest. Yeah, anyway, so gifts to myself. Next thing... oh my god, I'll just... oh, I'm gonna need scissors. I cannot help myself. I'm just like, you know, the self-control, I tell myself I don't need any more of this stuff, and then I go for it anyway. Yay, upside down. So I don't think I've blacked out my address properly, but yeah, I got more tea turtle! Because it just happened, like, you know, I follow them on Facebook and I probably shouldn't, and they came up with a design where I was just like, how can I say no to this? And you will see in a moment. So let me open. I've done, like, you know, enough tea turtle videos that I don't think it's worth making another review, so we will just do it as a live stream. Oh, there's my bin all the way over there. Okay. I got 2 shirts. I remember what one shirt was, but not the other, because it takes a while to get. So first shirt, I got them both in women's small, I think. Is that women's small? Yeah. Which way am I going? We meet again! Nemesis! And now my brain is singing Arch Enemy. I don't even know the lyrics properly, but we are Nemesis or something. We meet again, Nemesis, and it's a little puppy looking in the mirror, having a standoff with itself, which is plenty relatable. I'm so predictable, oh my god. Okay, so that's one. We meet again, Nemesis. What's the other one? The other one's black. Ooh! How could you not get that? And then, yeah, this one. So I think... Hang on, let me just... It's hard doing this backwards. Yeah. I must have been in such a mood that day, because that... So it's like a graveyard demon chick. Yeah, I can see why I picked that now. I totally forgot that that's what I picked. But yeah, so this one, when I got it, it was like a new design. And when they do new designs, they tend to put them on special. I think maybe 50% off. I don't remember. And then I was looking through their clearance ones. And so maybe this one was 60% off. I don't remember. But either way, I got a discount on them, which is how I justified it to myself, obviously. But yeah, how could I not? I just... You know, so now I have more tea turtle, and yeah, that one. Wow, okay, gifts to myself. And so obviously you can tell what mood I was in when I was buying those. Dear oh dear, and here's me thinking like, I'll get to the dissociation chat a bit later, but that's plenty relevant. Oh my god. Let me just have a quick drink. Alright. Next, do I need the scissors? I don't think I need the scissors. Let me just put these, where can I put them? Yeah. Alright, so, let me just double check. Everything's still good. Cool. I'm just, because it's been so long since I've done the live stream. It's dissociation. Well, I'll tell you about the shirt that I wore, not yet yesterday, last week. But do we want to get to that now, or should I keep going with gifts to myself? The first day I saw her last year, I was wearing my own shirt, you know, the Face Myself ones. Keep going? Okay. Well, should I have the shirts more visible, seeing as we're... I'll put her down there. Yeah. And then I will put on this side. We meet again, Nemesis. I should do that with my own stuff, but hey, it's going to disappear behind me, but you get the idea. No, so I think I did make a video about stuff, didn't I? Where is my list of videos? Sorry I'm so vague, it's just time passes so fast, and so I made that video about, you know, what my psychologist wrote. When was my previous appointment? On the 6th. Oh, okay. I don't remember what the other one, the life has been difficult, busy and confusing. What did I talk about in that? I just don't want to be too repetitive. I guess if I get repetitive, you guys can tell me. Yeah, no, I have no idea what that video is about. Sometimes, like, making the titles vague means I don't know my own what my own videos were about, and you know, yeah, time kind of moves slowly for me, and so, you know, in the same day, it's just like, how do I even keep track of what I was doing today? Anyway, so, yeah, I saw the dissociation specialist yesterday again, but I saw her the week before. I think I already mentioned that. The shirt that I was wearing the first time this year, it was the one with the glow-in-the-dark bunnies. So there's 4 bunnies, and it says, I think, be different. And the last bunny has, like, a little bit of blood spatter on it, and so does some of the writing. Like, it's in white, but then there's a little bit of blood spatter on it. That's the shirt, be different. And then when you turn off the lights, it glows in the dark, and the other 3 bunnies turn into skulls, and the last one turns into a bit of a monster thing. And so, obviously, you know my channel, DestroyerMariko, what the whole point of that is. So obviously that last bunny is representing that darker part of me, and it's gone and eaten the other bunnies, and I guess there's also a bit of a schizoid element in there as well, because, like, not fitting in and not being part of the crowd, like, and maybe even a covert schizoid thing, because I'm able to act like I'm part of the crowd, but I know I'm not. So that's what that represents. But the dissociation specialist, on the first day, she noticed it, and she was like, she interpreted it as meaning like 4 different versions of me, or 4 different parts of me, and I don't know, I just wasn't in the headspace to explain to her that that's not what it means, but that's how she interpreted it, and Anyway, yesterday I wore that, I posted that short yesterday, where I was wearing the Blood Moon Dragon t-shirt. Paper Vampire had suggested I buy that, and I was like, I've already got it! And so that's what that video was about, the proof of having that shirt, and being outdoors as well, because people, I don't know, I am at home a lot, but when I go outdoors, you'll probably know about it, because, well, actually, I do walk my dog most days, so I guess I am outdoors most days, but I just don't go very far. Anyway, yeah, no, I just wore the dragon one. I think I wasn't in such a good mood yesterday. Yeah, because I didn't sleep so well. And, I know I made that video about how my previous psychologist, the one I was seeing last year, she wrote in that thing, you know, about a possible DID diagnosis kind of thing. And, you know, I'm still... The only way that could work is if you shoehorned me in through structural dissociation, which I'm not sure is the most valid of theories. And yeah, it does make me think of stuff like Scientology. You know, that sort of science fiction thing. If you get something that sounds logical, you can kind of like... I don't know that there's proof for it, and it does seem to ignore other forms of dissociation, so yeah. And it downplays the role of memory and makes it more about the way that your parts operate. But then it kind of, in a way, I don't even know if OSDD even makes sense in that, because it turns it into something else, and it's confusing. Anyway, so I've had 2 sessions with this specialist now, and I haven't made another appointment, even though she was sort of like pushing me to, and I just have a lot of problems with it. After the first session this year, so the one last week, I went in with questions, and none of them really got answered, and like kind of specific. It's the word possible I'm not sure about. Suspected makes more sense. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I've got to go and let me pull up my diary. So I had that psychologist last year, and she had me keeping a diary, and then the new psychologist who I've transferred to within that clinic, so the regular psych, not the specialist psych, the regular psych, I've only had 1 session with her, but she said keep up the diary. And she's got access to it now. I think she only glanced at it once, and so I don't think she's aware of just how much I can write. Like, the way I YouTube is kind of similar to the way I write in terms of length and waffling. So we can have a little evil cackle about that. If the psychologist doesn't know anything about DID, that would be the wording of sending to a specialist. Yeah, I don't know. And it's going to be interesting when the psychiatrist you know, I'm seeing a psychiatrist in March. It'll be interesting to see, because they sent the reports to him as well. I'm curious to see what his opinion will be, but I don't really know much about the guy or what his approach will be like. I kind of just took whoever would take me in. The dissociation specialist did say she could refer me to, or like suggest a psychiatrist who could, you know, look more at the DID thing and diagnose me or something, but I don't want to go to someone who has that preconception. Like, that was my hesitation with seeing the dissociation specialist at all, because who was I talking to? You know, it's that thing where, like, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so I think, you know, everything that I describe, she's viewing it through a dissociation lens, regardless of whether that's what caused it. Let me just go back to my psych notes, though. Okay. Yeah, so I mentioned, like, last week, the notes I wrote to myself were that I went in with questions but didn't get any answers. It was more about her understanding my situation. Stuff about wondering if she was exaggerating things. I think I mentioned some of that in my last video. And then, yeah, she mentioned having a vacancy earlier. So last year she said I wouldn't be able to get in until the end of this year. That's why I set up everything else, but I'm kind of glad I did anyway, because I'm not sure about her approach. Having an experience where I can't tell if I'm in denial or just overthinking things to convince myself I'm in denial. I was having some really confusing thoughts. I even write down, I'm not sure how to articulate it. Yeah, so I felt after that first session that she was suggesting some of the less abnormal seeming issues with my sense of self might be a bigger problem than what I actually think they are. And I was not sure whether that's something I needed to explore, or if treating things as a bigger deal would be a waste of time and turn things into a bigger deal, until I eventually realized that this is garbage. Oh, sorry, I missed a few messages. And I know I'm looking in the wrong direction. I should set up my OBS so that when I'm reading things, it looks like I'm actually looking at the chat, but unfortunately it's on the other side of the screen. If it helps, thinking about how specialists might diagnose bipolar specialist. No, he said not bipolar, doesn't know. Later went to Asperger's specialist. He said yes, Asperger's after testing. Trying to listen right at the same time. Oh yeah, sorry, I don't really give much pauses. Yeah, well, like the psychiatrist that I saw, you know, about 5-6 years ago, he often, like, would sort of ask the questions, like screening questions, which I could tell were for things like bipolar or OCD, because he sort of picked up that there was something, you know, I probably had something other than depression, but he wasn't sure what it was, and so he was screening me for, like, the obvious, you know, most common kinds of things, but sort of none of them ever really fit. But yeah, I guess the difference with dissociation and something like Asperger's is, and I don't know if my pronunciation even of Asperger's is right, but yeah, I suppose one of the big differences is for, like, autism spectrum, the screening process is pretty, like, from what I understand, it's pretty full on and, like, well structured, and there's, like, a process, whereas with dissociation, it's kind of like I describe stuff, but they're going off what I describe, and if I'm not able to articulate what I'm really going through, you know, I might mislead them on what it really is. Like, I don't know if there's any way for them to test that what I'm describing is the same as what they're looking for. And I have noticed when I read about other people's experience of dissociation, often I'm just like, I don't know that I experience it like that or to that intensity. You know, things like with derealization, I think I think maybe also for depersonalization, people sort of experience being in kind of a fog. And to me, the fog really only happens if I'm really, really tired. And I think that's understandable. I don't know that it's a dissociation thing. When I have derealization, it's more just like this feeling that things are not real, but my perception's not that different. Correct about autism screening. Did not receive any structured bipolar testing, either from the specialist. is there more structured bipolar testing? Isn't it just like sometimes you have depression, sometimes you have mania? I think it's mainly mania that you need for a bipolar. Like, you don't even need the depression bit, as far as I know. I don't know if there's a separate... I don't know if there's a separate mania diagnosis on its own. It's like if you have mania, it's just you're shoved into bipolar, I think. So, yeah. Like, I think autism spectrum, as I understand it, it's a developmental thing, and it's not really considered a mental illness in the same way. I think it gets a bit confusing because as, things are being updated, things change so much. But I'm pretty sure, like, autism is in its own separate category, so it's not really like mental illness in the way depression's mental illness, but it is something neurological, maybe, like, it's a different category, if that makes sense. And so I think because of that, there is a more structured way to determine if that is a thing that someone has. Whereas I think with the more, like, mental illness type stuff, it's more like questionnaires and things, and I hate them all the time because I end up trying to overinterpret things. Neurodevelopment, yeah, like intellectual disability, yeah, okay. So, like, it's in a different category, and I think that's why the testing is so structured, because, like, if your brain is physically structured a particular way, maybe it's easier to find the things that are relevant to test for, whereas if it's just that you have whatever brain you have, and then you've got the mental illness, because, like, yeah, I don't know, it's just like a different kind of thing that you can't do as much. Oh, the new merch is here. I didn't expect the bot to do that. The bot hasn't done that in a while. That's exciting. Well done, little Stream Elements bot, promoting my merch. I really should make some more. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit distracting. Just like, look at me setting up machines to do my promo. Wow. Okay, well, let me just sort of skim my, okay, so the thing about how if we overinterpret the dissociation things that I have, like, my concern is if they convince me that things I think are normal are not normal, and then I go deep into it and, I don't know, talk to myself or give names to different things going on in my head or whatever, like, I could do all that work, but I'm concerned at some point I will be like, this is all garbage, why are they putting me through this? Like, I don't know, like, none of these things really exist. Like, I'm concerned about that, and it makes me think of the iatrogenic model of dissociation, especially like DID type stuff, because there is the trauma model, which is the one that's mostly accepted, but back when, it was multiple personalities or whatever, back when all that took off as a big thing, there were cases, like, I feel like the DID community just, bulldozes over this, but there were cases where people were being convinced they had multiple personalities when they didn't. And I've seen an interview with a lady who was told stuff and then realized, like, it was all bullshit and she was being made to act a particular way and made to believe a particular way. And I can see how easy it would be to fall into that if you're being told a thing that you have is something not normal, and you try and buy into it and you try and go along with it, and it just makes me think of that, like, if I push it, that's why I tried to treat some of the things I go through as a delusion, because then you're not encouraging it, and that feels safer, because if you're wrong, you don't want to have encouraged something that's, garbage. I do consider if I really actually have autism. Maladaptive daydreaming as a child also explains my symptoms, but this condition is not in the DSM. Well, I mean, because, like, autism has some very specific things. Like, I'm sure there's some difference with maladaptive daydreaming. Yeah, I mean, a few years back, I think even I talked on the channel, people suspected I might have autism, but when I look at it, I know there's a lot of things that just doesn't fit. It's really just, the fact that I'm a bit different and not particularly social. Those are the main things, but I don't have a lot of the other major things, and I feel like if you tried to put me on autism spectrum, I'd be so on the mild end. It's like, where do you draw the line? And it just had no meaningful explanation for my life or anything, whereas with schizoid, I can look at it and go, holy shit, that explains everything, like, so much fits up. Even though I can do the covert thing, that aside, like, so much made sense. Whereas when I look at autism, just doesn't explain things for me. And I think if people had convinced me that I had autism, I don't think I would have figured out the trauma stuff, because if it was autism, that means it's a developmental thing that I've had since forever. Whereas with the schizoid stuff, like, if it's caused by trauma, it's something that's built up over time. And I can see that. And I do wonder if, like, maybe one of the reasons that I've been able to become covert is because way back, I do remember having a bit of a performance instinct. Like, I wanted to be on stage and so on, and that's sort of just been squeezed out of me by my situation. And then so as I've become an adult and sort of tried to find my way in life, I went through my really strong overt schizoid period of time, but that original thing, that original part of me that was more of a performer has sort of like just been constantly chipping away, and so I've learned to bring more of that back into my life over time. And then it's sort of in conflict with the schizoid instinct. So sometimes I'll go up and perform, and sometimes I'll just be like, I do not want to be around anyone. I need to recharge. I just cannot make sense of society. And I don't know. That's just one of my theories about why I could be covert. But just like concerned that if I go down this dissociation route, they're going to convince me of stuff that just isn't true, and I'm going to do all this extra work. Like, I already had a hard enough time, oh my god, maybe 10 years ago, when I was bringing more of the destroyer aspect into my life and trying to find ways to channel it. And then also I had that, like, whole M3 thing, which is the part of me that dealt with relationships. Like, that felt enough, and it was sort of like, but, like, that felt more legit, I think, whereas some of the stuff that I'm being told now, I'm just like, it doesn't feel like that to me, and so I feel like if they tried to convince me that it was the same thing, I think it'd make my life more chaotic, because then I'm trying to deal with just stuff that doesn't really exist. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm just concerned that they'll make things seem like a bigger deal than they are, and I'll do stuff and then I'll realize it's garbage anyway, and I will just become more disillusioned with the mental health world. Okay, and I think then the next day I had some more issues. Oh yeah, because so in that first session this year, she asked me what I was hoping to get out of therapy, and, I gave the same sort of things that I gave to the regular psych, and it's stuff to do with, like, I want my life to be more stable, because at the moment I'll have bad days. The dissociation specialist has been making you feel like this. Yeah, I have just, I think even in that first session, I got the feeling that, she was taking some of the things that are not as big a deal and making it seem like maybe it is a bigger deal. And then I went through a whole week of questioning myself, like, am I not seeing something about myself? Like, because she's an expert, can she see something that I can't? Or is she wrong and I know more about myself than she does, and she's trying to impose her view? I went through that whole thing of just not being sure. The self-doubt, it made me think a little bit of being gaslit by my ex, although he had different motivations, and some of that got really bad. Oh, no, sorry, I've mostly been talking about I've only had one appointment with the regular psych. Most of this stuff is the specialist psych. And then the psychologist last year, I think she's just going based off what the specialist said to me. Oh, sorry, what said about me in the report to her and my GP. Sorry, it's a bit confusing having too many psychologists, and I don't want to use their names because, I haven't said, can I mention your name in my live stream on my YouTube? But yeah, so in that first session, she had asked what I was hoping to get out of therapy. I mentioned things like stability, because at the moment, some days I just do not function, and that's really slowed down things for me, and, that's why I haven't been able to work, because I'm so unpredictable. Concerns make sense, thank you. Like, when I talk to other people, I feel like I am not, I'm not completely off base with my concerns. yeah, no, I want more stability in my life. I want to not feel depressed and not wanting to be here. I want to get some more motivation in my life and just, I don't know, find a way to just live and not hate it so much. Stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure I told the dissociation chick the same stuff. But yeah, that night, and then I woke up really early, and it's sort of like actually remembering that the whole reason I even tried any of this is because that other part of me wanted me to go and get this stuff addressed, and I realized I hadn't told this lady what that, you know, hidden, darker, destroyer part of me wanted to get out of therapy. So I made a note to mention that to her. And I think so validation and action were the two things that I managed to come up with. And I got the sense that it didn't like the word validation, but that's what it is. So I'm just going with it. I don't give a shit. That's what it is. Especially as a bit vague. Oh my god, and then all that stuff happened where I had the, you know, the green screen thing. Oh, there's so much that's been happening, and because I haven't been able to vlog so much, like, there's so much to catch you guys up on. Hang on. But no, also I realized in that first session, I did zone out, and she'd asked me to tell her if I was zoning out. But like, yeah, so I made a note to tell her about that. Yeah, okay, and then I'm just sort of in this diary talking about other things in my days. So there was that place where I had the green screen, and I've been back, and oh, the green screen thing though, that was interesting, just to take like a little detour from the dissociation stuff. The zoning out could be normal, not paying attention. Yes, thank you! It doesn't have to be dissociation, right? But she wanted me to let her know if I was zoning out. But I'll get back to that. Remind me to get back to the zoning out when I talk about the second session that I had yesterday with her, because that, I think, is important. But just to, you know, try and go chronologically, you know, I found the place with the green screen. Yeah, it is general wording. Green screen thing. So I found this place, and I had sent in some feedback because their website was just terrible, not telling, like, you know, they said, we have this vlog studio, but there's no information on how to use it. So I sent in some feedback saying, hey, how does this work? And then they invited me in, and yeah, I had a look around the first day, and they had this Asian tech bloke, to just stereotype. Asian tech bloke comes in to show me stuff, but it was pretty obvious that he wasn't really sure. Like, I'm sure he's good with tech, but not necessarily creative tech, because he was sort of hesitant to start anything up, and they use Adobe, so I did all my editing on Premiere Pro. So this is the day after is when I came back, and Asian tech bloke wasn't in, so I just kind of had to figure everything out myself, because he sort of showed me stuff, but it was clear he didn't even know how to do the green screen thing, which I thought, you know, if you're running a space with green screen, surely you would have someone who knows how to do it. But no, I had to figure that all out myself. And I use, I've used in the past HitFilm, but these days I use DaVinci Resolve. I have not used Premiere Pro like ever. So when I made my video, I had to learn that and just Google everything. If you want to know how to do stuff, just Google and you can get a tutorial, and that's how I figured it out in my 90-minute slot. And at the end of the 90-minute slot, I still had time to show them just the basics. It's just such a funny thing, like, they've got so much tech there and they don't know how to use it, or they know only how to use certain bits, and so, like, I can basically go in, they've got VR, they've got an Alienware, like, better than my Alienware with a VR headset, and they've got a PlayStation with a VR headset that no one knows how to use. They have a 3D scanner that they didn't even know was a 3D scanner until I'm like, oh, it's a 3D scanner, and they're like, oh, do you know how to use it? I was in on Saturday as well, and I was teaching one of the ladies, and you know, she's got my phone number now, and I'm always nervous about giving out my phone number, but she said I can call her if I want to come in and have her open up the space for me, regardless of when anyone's there, and she works full-time at the library, so, like, you know, Monday to Friday I can just go in almost whenever, as long as she's there. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I showed her on Saturday how to do the green screen, but so on the first day, it must have been Tuesday that was the first day, and then Wednesday was the day that I made my little video, and then Saturday's the day I taught her. On the very first day, I noticed, like, I went in, and I was just I must have been in some kind of mood, or maybe this is a dissociation thing, or who knows. But I went in and I just had this really, like, the persona that I was portraying was very confident and cheerful. And I'm just like watching myself going, where did this come from? Why have we been like, what if we were like this every day? Do we have to be so grumpy all the time? But yeah, so, and I made an impression. I did the whole, like, you know, shaking people's hands, firm handshake thing. I don't know where that came from. It just happened. And then the next day I came in and they kind of just, like, let me go in and do my thing, play around with their gear, and then they're like, oh, we'll just be outside, let us know when you're done. And I'm like, yep, sure. And then I show them stuff, and yeah, she asked me to come in on the Saturday and show her things, and she thinks I'm an amazing teacher, but you know, she's about 20 years older than me, and it's just interesting trying to teach someone like that, because she's very determined to learn, but she didn't grow up around tech. And so, like, even trying to teach her even basic things, like how to hold, like the idea of holding down a mouse instead of just clicking, holding down and dragging a box around something like that. It's weird trying to show someone that, because it feels like so much of an instinct, like, oh yeah, drag a box around that, and she's like, how do you, oh my god, that wasn't like. And so I taught her to Google as well, so hopefully she'll do that, because if she tries to call me every time there's an issue, I can just imagine, but yeah, no, like, she's actually really determined, so, and she's the main one actually trying to do stuff with the space, and yeah, maybe we can figure some stuff out, but I don't know, I sort of have been through a roller coaster of, like, do I really want to hang out here and be this social persona? Like, because sometimes once I'm somewhere, I can get set in a persona. Like at work, at bonsai work, there's a particular way I interact with my boss, although I also have a different way that I interact with customers, and that's one of the few times where I can be in two different modes at the same time and not feel weird about who's watching me. But yeah, no, I got set in this particular way of talking to my boss, which I can't even replicate now. Obviously, I've got the particular way I talk on YouTube, and so now it seems like I've got a particular way already that I talk in this creative vlog space, and they've got a podcast studio, and they've got, like, this drawer full of laptops and tablets and things, and they've got this Lego robot set, and they've got these little cutting machines and a laser cutter, and it's just like, this stuff has been here for 2 years and almost no one knows how anything works. And they've got a GoPro, which, like, they'd have no plans to do action cam stuff with it. They'd have to loan it out to someone for that to be useful. Like, what are they going to do with it? Have someone put it on their head and crawl under all the chairs in the space? They don't even know what a GoPro is. And then they also had, oh my god, they've got a Blackmagic live streaming box, which, you know, DaVinci Resolve is made by Blackmagic, and they don't even know what it is. And then they also have a Focusrite 18i8 box, you know, like I've got my M box kind of thing. They've got that, and I'm just like, what are you plugging into this? Do you have guitars? No, why do you have this? And, like, to explain to them how to use an audio interface like that, I mean, I'd have to take them through almost a whole audio course, because they're just so far behind on what you would even do with it. And I was like, she's like, what would you use this for? And I'm like, nothing you guys would do. I'd have one at home. And I'm working from home and my partner's on holiday. I had a meeting today and it was weird because my brain wasn't sure which persona to use. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's weird trying to manage different situations. But yeah, no, they have a audio interface, and I'm just like, combined with the Blackmagic live streaming box, like, I don't even use a live streaming box. I'm just using OBS. You don't need this box. What are you gonna do, like, get a band set up in your space and live stream them with all this gear? Like, they've just been given all this money, and they don't know what any of their stuff is. I think the main person who bought their stuff has moved on, and then they've bought more stuff since. So, like, I think they got the best Focusrite box they could get their hands on, and it's just like, but why? And then I come along and I'm like, oh my god, you've got this and this and this, and she's like, ah. But yeah, anyway, because I'm, like, the only person around who seems to have a clue about it, I can basically go whenever I want, and, you know, they're kind of excited that someone knows about the stuff that they've got and knows how to use them. It's a really weird situation, but I think in this area as well, I mean, see, with some of the high-end gear they have, in my area, people my age, I mean, they have a lot of older people come in for these workshops, which isn't really their target market. So they've kind of stuck to like less tech projects as far as I'm aware. Oh, someone's walking around. Sorry, that's a bit distracting. I'll just have a drink. But yeah, so the older people in the area, they're like, you know, older than the lady I was helping. They're probably not going to understand some of the more high-end gear. You know, they'd have to be really enthusiastic and really clued on to tech. Otherwise, it's hard when you haven't grown up around that stuff to, like, get into the bits and pieces of tech. It's just how it is. You know, my grandpa, when he was alive, he was really into tech stuff, but it was still really hard for him to understand, and I ended up having to help him with stuff. Like, someone got him an iPhone, and I'm like, you should have just let him stick with his BlackBerry. Is it BlackBerry or Blueberry? Yeah, I don't know. iPhone was just not the right choice for him and where he was at in his tech journey. Like, he'd spent a few years on learning BlackBerry, and then you want him to change to iPhone. I'm like, oh my god. Anyway, yeah, so like there's the older people the older generations who are not really going to make use of that space, at least not without assistance. Then there's the people more like my age who do have some knowledge of how to use the stuff, but with a lot of the high-end gear, if they know how to use it, especially the audio interface, if they know how to use it, chances are they're professionals, so they already have the gear at home or at their studio or wherever they work, so they don't really need this casual learning space, and it's not set up for lessons really. It's just like, you know, room, and then in the corner is the editing station, and then there's the green screen. Like, it's not set up for teaching. It's not like you have like a bunch of computers and you can put it up on a screen. It's not like that. So it's not like uni. And then there's the young kids. The thing is, this is in a reasonably wealthy area, and especially if you go towards the beach, that's where all the mansions are. And so those people, they would have already bought their kids all this gear. And I was talking to the main lady, and she said, yeah, we did a 3D printing workshop, and a lot of the kids who came in said, oh, we've got one of those at home. Just casually, like, oh yeah, my dad's got one of those, or, you know, we use those all the time. And so they already, I mean, they do know how to use them, but they don't need to be in this space. So it's almost like I have a bit of a monopoly in a way. Like, if I wanted to hang around there, I could. I don't know that I do, because I've already had that, like, social, whatever, having to talk to people. But if I'm in the right mood, because I do go through these things, and if I happen to be in that surprisingly confident, cheerful seeming, because, you know, what I seem like isn't necessarily what I feel, so that cheerful seeming mode, I could just go there and muck around with the gear. When I was younger, if I had access to that kind of thing, I would have been there all the time. Yeah, but anyway, so that was a bit of a rant about that space, and I think, yeah, after that, I sort of got really, really tired. Oh, look, someone's messaging me. I'm live streaming. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I think I got really tired. The Thursday, what did I do? I can't even remember. What day was Thursday? That was 9th. Yeah, I was low energy. And then on the Friday, I had wanted to go to a gig, but I just had this headache. Conveniently come up for one day. I missed the gig. And then, the next day, I started off with a little bit of a headache, but then I was fine by the end of the day. It was super annoying, and that's when I went and taught the lady stuff. So, yeah, it's just like, what are you doing to me, brain? Anyway, had a lot of sleep problems over the weekend, and that brings us back to, yeah, the dissociation specialist. Okay, let me have a drink. Just make sure stream health is still good. Yay! Alright, so if we get back to the dissociation specialist, that was yesterday. God, it feels like so long ago. Yeah, I had a rough start to the day because I hadn't slept well. Okay, so I actually wrote quite a long rant to myself about the dissociation specialist. Give me a moment because I can still hear a lot of, like, noise around the place. Someone's just flushed the toilet and it's making me like, oh, they're gonna walk in the hallway in a moment. Hey! Comrade Cam, the designated lefty in my life. Yeah, go and scream at them. No, I'm just gonna like hide for a bit. Ahoy! New shirt, and then there's another new shirt, because I'm super predictable. Oh my god, I'm not pointing in the right way. And PO box thing, I finally went and just got my keys. And then that brings me to like the family joke when you're like, you know, where's my keys? Or where's my key? And then because Mikey, you know, that's a joke that comes up a lot, and it's kind of lame, but, you know, it's a fun one to catch the family off guard. Yeah, and how could I not buy that, you know, with all my issues with myself? Oh, and it's a puppy instead of like a lot of the cat ones and bunny ones. And then we can also sing. If I ever cover Arch Enemy, I need to be wearing this shirt. I probably could cover that one actually, because that is closer to my older style of false chord growling, and so if I run out of air, like I wouldn't run out of air, especially with like the way that I've refined my technique, and I remember watching her, there's a lot of gaps for her to take breaths, so yeah, I don't know, I was trying to organise, a friend was trying to organise an Arch Enemy cover with me, but I'm not sure if that's still going ahead, so maybe I just get like a Nemesis track and try and scream over that. But yeah, so getting back to the story, if I can hear what are people doing. Should I just read my entries? Yeah, there's 2 entries from yesterday. Give me a moment, because maybe I should just check in the hallway, because I don't really want to. Alright, just give me a moment, and I wanna see if I do this, does that annoy anything? Alright. Give me a moment. Oh, okay. Yeah, so, I think Mum's just putting the, garbage out. Where are we? Okay. Did anyone see an ad just then? Because I pressed a button and I don't know if it actually did a thing or if it isn't a thing. While we're here, have we got our this merch and stuff while we're talking about ads? Although, you know, the way that I've done it, you kind of can't see it under the... Yay! Merch. Okay. Enough screwing around. Oh, go away. There we go. It's gone. Okay. Yeah, should I just read this thing? Okay, so I had my second session for the year with the dissociation specialist yesterday. As I mentioned, I have not made another appointment at this time, although she's kind of been pushing for it. And because it's easier than me trying to remember it, I will read this thing. I'm going to replace their names. And that's going to get confusing, but okay. Let me just highlight it so I read the right thing. So there's 2 different entries. So I had the session with a dissociation specialist, really not sure what to think. Once again, left with a feeling of wanting to quit therapy altogether. Oh yeah, so after that first session last week, hey, what's up? I'm just talking about, stuff and things. I'm talking about the dissociation specialist at the moment. Yeah. And so, last week, I had that experience of, you know, just wanting to cancel all my appointments after I had that session. And I thought that was just like a one-off. But no, again, after seeing this lady yesterday, I had this feeling that I just wanted to cancel all therapy, not do any of it, and just, I don't know. So, not a great sign, twice in a row. Didn't really get any answers, especially not to the most pressing questions I asked. She was a bit repetitive on her talking points, even after I'd said things made sense and shown I understood already. She seemed to say the right things, but I also got a sense like she was pushing me to commit to regular therapy and not willing to give me any real help until I do. In brackets, which reminded me a bit of the hypnosis chick who always said she'd address my other self with me, but always pushed it off to next session. Outside brackets now. She made it sound like cancelling sessions once locked in would be hard, which I think is because people who legitimately have DID are maybe a bit more chaotic, and if they're not sticking to therapy, like, who knows what's going to happen. But I'm not like that. I'm, you know, even when I was at my most chaotic, I think I did better than that. Maybe she feels she can't give you proper support without the regular sessions. Yes, because I think she's colouring her idea of me based on her specialisation, and I don't think it's relevant to what's going on with me. And especially now, like, I am not... Sorry, I thought my dog was coming in. Especially now, I am not as chaotic as I used to be. Like, I have got things reasonably under control, especially, like, just not dealing with it. Like, of course, my life is not going well, but I have that chaos under control reasonably well. Where was I up to? But yeah, so she made it sound like cancelling sessions once locked in would be hard, which I just... doesn't give me a good feeling. When I had a moment of tearing up about my life, but expressed the disconnection between my logical thinking versus my emotional feeling. So sometimes, like, I'll start crying, but have this experience where, like, I am feeling the emotion, but I'm also not feeling the emotion. That's what I'm talking about. So when I had that happen in session, it's more likely to happen in therapy, I guess, because that's my therapy mode. Yeah, so she decided to focus on that, despite me telling her earlier that it's my other self that... Sorry, I refer to that as my other self in this. Despite me telling her earlier that's my other self that pushed me to be there and that wants the validation and action, and that I really want to know what to do with that part of me when it flares up. So I went in saying, this is my problem. What do I do about it? And instead she wants to focus on this emotional disconnection thing. Oh, and then she also wants to address my emotional disconnection and depression with EMDR. Hey, Humpy! Hello, puppy! We're going to take a moment to just say hello, puppy, and he's going to go and find somewhere to make a nest on my bed. Do you like how prickly I am? Because it's that sort of a day. The patron saint of plagues and so on. Anyway, let me find my spot again. So yeah, she wants to address my emotional disconnection and depression with EMDR. So that's that eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, I think. I've just written EMDR. She wants to address it with EMDR, which I understand is not well supported by science and sounds dumb to me. This is a reaction my psychologist from last year was concerned I'd have in seeing this dissociation specialist. Because, yeah, I just don't... Like, if something's not well supported by science, it's hard for me to take that seriously, and especially, like, after having the experience with the hypnosis lady, and she had some very unscientific ideas, and she couldn't even understand why statistics are used in psychology. Like, she thought that was... And I'm just like, how did you get your degree if you can't understand the statistics? Like, oh my god, Anyway, so I just lost all respect for that chick and couldn't... So when I mentioned that to my psychologist last year, and occasionally she'd bring something up and I'd be like, but that's not scientific, and she's like, yeah, well, sometimes you have to deal with it because there's not always good science. And so that's why I've tried to keep an open mind with a dissociation chick. But yeah, she, you know, like EMDR, it's more designed for PTSD, which I do not have. Yes, I've had trauma, but I don't have a PTSD reaction to it. I think that's the nature of the type of trauma I've been through. It's not your normal sort of thing. So, yeah. Anyway, and so then she wants to use it with depression and my emotional disconnection, and I'm just not convinced that... Anyway, there's, like... When you look at the research, I mean, I haven't looked at the actual papers, I've looked at discussions about the papers, and so I may not be completely accurate on this, and it does seem like whoever's, like, the answer you get about the validity depends on the bias of the person writing about it. So people who are proponents of EMDR will be like, yes, there's heaps of evidence, but then people who are skeptical will say, actually, it doesn't work any better than other therapies like CBT, and maybe it's just like, it's not the eye movement thing that does it, it's just the talking about stuff that does it, because there's no real mechanism for why moving your eyes in a particular way is going to do it. And that's just like a distraction, like an extra thing that you don't need. So the parts of it that do work are already in wider psychology, and then everything else is just decoration. A lot of psychologists don't understand statistics because they're not mathematicians, but they should understand why they are used. Yeah, I think, like, maths isn't the easiest thing for everyone, and a lot of people who get into psychology are probably more into emotional stuff, and so the maths is more difficult, but they should at least understand why it's used, even if they don't get the best marks in their actual use of it, because, unless you're in research, how often are you going to use the statistics in everyday whatever? So I agree with that. But yeah, anyway, so this chick, EMDR, like it works, but not for the reasons that they think it works, is what I understand of the science. And yeah, it sounds dumb. So my old psychologist was worried that seeing this specialist, I would encounter this issue, and I tried to be open to it, but if she was just trying to suggest it for some kind of DID thing, maybe I'd be like, oh, okay, but she's suggesting it for, like, depression, and I think there's even less evidence for that kind of stuff. And also, like, she does other therapies. Why are we doing EMDR, or why is she suggesting EMDR? Because I think that, like, it's about you think of a painful memory or something, and then you do this eye movement stuff, and there's like a whole bunch of steps that go with it. But I'm not sitting around in my life thinking about the memories and having issues because of that. I think it's more like I'm in a set pattern because of things that have happened to me. Like, I'm not traumatized by the memories in that kind of way. Whereas if someone has PTSD and they do have painful memories, maybe it's something that would help. Even though the eye movement, like, you could get rid of the eye movement thing, and I think some studies have shown you get the same results, eye movements or no eye movements. So something in it might be okay, but not what they think. And then she's trying to apply it to me in this context. It does sound shit. Where was I up to? Yeah, it sounds dumb to me. That's the concern my old psychologist had. So I'll keep reading. I can see how addressing the emotional disconnection is probably worth doing, and that some of my resistance might be the schizoid reluctance to change, but I'm not convinced EMDR is the way to do it, given I don't have PTSD-type reaction to my traumas. In brackets, even if I did think the method was valid, which I honestly don't, close brackets. Also, I get a sense that my other self has lost interest in this dissociation specialist, and that's what ultimately made me stop seeing the hypnosis chick, but this time that part of me seems less patient. I think also I could be having a schizoid reaction to her going on and on about the therapeutic relationship so much. Because she does. She's like, we've got to get a therapeutic relationship. Oh my god. Because I get the idea. I understand why that's a thing. But something about the way she talks about it seems to rub me the wrong way. Anyway, the point of seeing her was more for the confusing dissociation experiences I have, but I feel like she's more focused on the schizoid emotional disconnect, and it's hard for me to see why I should keep trekking out to a location that is far away for that. So I didn't book another session, said I'd think about it. So she seems supportive of me considering things properly, but I can't shake the feeling of there being a sales tactic in her style. Does this specialist have experience treating people with DID as opposed to derealization, depersonalization? Yes, that is very much her thing. Or at least people who apparently have DID. I wouldn't know for sure if, it's legit or not. Because I still have... As much as I've gone through the things that I've gone through, and I'm just realizing why this doesn't make sense. Hang on. I finally untangled it. Ta-da! Anyway, sorry, distraction. Yeah, apparently she does work with people with DID, and so I'm just like... And she seems like understanding, and so when I'm hesitant to talk about stuff, she's like, you can't really surprise me with things. I deal with this all the time, and I'm like, Yeah, anyway, so... with that last comment about the sales tactic, so what she wants me to do is commit to a regular schedule, and at first she said weekly, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't. Can we do fortnightly? But once I'm locked into a fortnightly time slot every 2 weeks, then she was saying, like, she doesn't like people to ring up and cancel. She'd rather I come regardless of what's going on and talk to her about cancelling. And I'm just like, you know, things come up in life, and not in the way that she's thinking, like, you know, what Cam said about, like, you know, this proper support. And, like, you know, if you've really got DID and you're going through a thing and maybe you've switched to a different person or whatever, I can see how it could be hard to keep up something regular, and so there'd need to be some kind of commitment there. Although if someone is really losing their memory, I'm not sure how you would enforce that. But I don't have that issue, you know. And sometimes things do come up. And for example, if I decide to do Hello Scream this year, right, there's certain days you have to be at that. If that clashes with therapy, I'm going to Hello Scream. I'm not going to therapy. Are you kidding? Yeah, and so, like, it's just one of those things that imposes on your time, and because it takes so long to get there, like, my regular psychologist, there are more travel options. This specialist, I have to go via the city, and then go another place, and then come back to the city, and then go home, and it was in peak hour yesterday as well, so, I actually caught the ferry, because the ferry is the best way to travel, but then the bus at the end was cancelled, and so I had to get a lift the rest of the way home anyway. But at least I didn't have to go, you know, through all the city stuff on the bus in peak hour, because that is horrible. There's too many people. Even in peak hour, the ferry, there's always seats available, because it's just how it is. And I think the weather was not great, so there was even less people on the ferry. And then you get to go out past the harbour bridge and the opera house. You can see all that. You can see all the cruise ships. There was one day I caught the ferry and we almost hit some sailors because they'd come out into the wrong path, and a speedboat had to chase them away, and we had to stop the ferry for a bit until we could get through. Yeah. Anyway, so that was that first... God, I've just done so much talking. Let me have another drink. Right. So then later that... Was that same day? Oh yeah, because that was yesterday. Sorry, I'm losing track of time again. So later that evening then, I guess. Where is it? Okay, I'll read the second... Oh, yeah, no, I'll read the second entry I made about the thing yesterday. So let me just make sure... So, thinking about the specialist again, I do have a feeling that her specialization is coloring her view. I don't see how reprocessing memories is going to change my emotional detachment. I'm not that way because of things I remember. I think instead it's an entrenched habit or similar, and my last year psychologist, regular psychologist, her idea of trying to notice my emotions more is a better strategy to slowly shift things. But what makes me more convinced of the dissociation specialist bias is that when I told her how I'd zoned out last time, I told you the zoning out thing was going to come back. When I told her how I'd zoned out last time, she seemed to assume it was triggered by something maybe that she said in the session, rather than me just losing focus or getting distracted. Sometimes I'll be thinking about something and not pay attention to what's going on while I'm stuck on that thought. I don't remember if I was thinking about anything in particular, but it struck me as odd how she jumped right to the idea that something we'd talked about had caused it. I mean, I could have just been bored, to be honest, LOL. And yeah, so that comes back to, yeah, nervous neuron, you mentioned something. I guess I can't compare my experience with the bipolar specialist. If the science on DID is shaky, then an expert in it might also be shaky, and your concerns make sense. Yeah. And, you know, like, when you watch DID YouTube, they'll go on about how they've got brain scans and so on, but apparently when I've looked at other sources, they're arguing that it's not that cut and dry, and they're not getting repeatable results. Yeah, and I think, like, maybe there's some evidence coming out slowly, but I don't know that it's conclusive at this stage, and yeah, a lot of it seems to be self-report, and, you know, at what point does something go from being normal to abnormal? I guess, like, you know, on a spectrum of things, maybe there is DID at the extreme end, and maybe people are really going through this stuff, but what I go through is definitely a lot milder, and, like, at what point between, like, you know, not a problem, people's regular, like, you know, everyone is slightly different in different situations, so that normal mode of being to DID, like, at what point would you put me? And I feel like this lady is trying to push me further that way than I really am. And, you know, this whole thing about my disconnection from my emotions, somehow, like, I don't experience that as anything close to a DID thing. It's just like, I think that is a schizoid thing where I'm not allowed to admit to having emotions or something. Like, my brain is just disowning that because I can't be that way. And I guess being a glass child as well, you know, being trained to think on a subconscious level, like being trained to think that my emotions don't matter, so I shouldn't show them. And I think there's sort of the Japanese part of me as well, because Japanese are not exactly... what makes you different to other DID I've heard of is you have been consistently skeptical, so the other DIDs being treated would believe in it more, so the placebo effect would work better. Placebo effect, yeah. Well, and also, I wonder if this is where maybe schizoid is helping me out a bit, because I don't like the idea of being part of a crowd, but I know especially with the younger generation today, a lot of them do want to be in a crowd, and so, like, that's, you know, there was that TikTok thing where kids were all of a sudden developing Tourette's, and it turned out like they didn't actually have Tourette's, it's just there was like that sort of social contagion going on. What's that one where there was that episode of House where they're on a plane and everyone starts getting sick, but it turns out it's like a hysterical thing and no one is actually sick. They've just gone like mental about it. I forget what that's called, if you know what I'm talking about, where like people can just catch. There was like the oldest one that I can remember is like, I don't know, medieval or something, and people caught a dancing sickness, and then they're all, like, dancing themselves to death, but it's just, like, one of those weird social things that they picked up, because the brain does weird stuff like that. And I wonder if, like, some of these DID kids who don't have schizoid and do have a need to be in part of a group, I wonder if that's part of how some of them convince themselves that they have it when maybe they don't. And there are some high-profile ones who are very suspicious, who have very convenient on-camera switches all the time, and always having new people pop up. Whereas, you know, some of the others seem more convincing, give or take. You know, like, obviously, none of us can know for sure whether any of these people are legit or bullshitting, but even the ones who are bullshitting clearly have something wrong with them. It just might not actually be DID. But yeah, no, I just wonder if some of that need to belong is why some of the kids think that they have something that they don't, and it may helps them fit in and helps us explain away some of their behavior, because I know that there's quite a lot of overlap between DID and people who have borderline personality disorder. And so a lot of people who fit one category could actually fit the other category just as easily. Got to have something wrong with you to feel that you need to do that to begin with. Yeah, but like, you know, the extent that some of these people go to, because like there is an ordinary belonging, and that's fine. You know, you can go with a trend for a bit. Like, you know, some people who might get into goth or something, for the wrong reasons, because they want to fit in with a group, didn't fit in with a regular group, they go goth for a bit, it's a phase, they go through it, whatever. But the extent that some of these kids get into particular things and like clutch onto the disorders, there's a point where it's probably a sign of something else and they do need some kind of help, just maybe not the help that they're getting convincing themselves that they have something. And that's one of my concerns, is like when I was going through the whole thing of do I have delusions, I realize now that what I experience isn't delusional, because like the fact that I can question it and then the nature of it's quite different to you know, some people have given me, forget his username because he's changed it so many times, but there's the satanic guy, you know, him and a few other users explained to me what their delusions were like when they were not on medication, and it's just like, I cannot compete with that, basically. But yeah, you know, when I was worried about the delusion thing, it's that sort of thing of like, I don't want to fall into something and get obsessed with it and realize that it's bullshit in like a year's time when I've done all this work and it's not right. Let me see if I've got any more notes. I haven't shown you the other present to myself. Yeah, no, I think those are the main things that I wrote about the dissociation specialist, I think. Yeah, it's just... so I haven't made an appointment again. Convinced this isn't delusion. Yeah, so, like, I have something happen, and, I don't know how I would explain it. I think DID is too far that way. I think if you were going to diagnose me with a disorder on that scale, maybe OSDD, other specified dissociative disorder, category 1B, I think. Although I think category 1 is the only one that's official, and it's like the community have added the B because there's the A or the B version. So they call it 1B, even though that's not technically the official way. Or in the ICD-11, there's partial dissociative identity disorder, which is the same basic thing. Not quite DID, but sort of on that scale. Although, when I looked at the ICD-11, I think it is based on structural dissociation. And actually, I thought about... Hang on. I did think about... I've got this list of video ideas, sorry. I did think about going through the ICD-11's DID criteria because there were some things that you could probably shoehorn me into that. I think the DSM-5 has perhaps a higher threshold of diagnosing people with DID. And then I have problems with the ICD-11 anyway. Another video I've been planning to make, just haven't got around to, Schizoid Angst. Some of my schizoid viewers would know him. Schizoid Angst did a request for me to look at some stuff that I was telling him about, because I guess he hasn't kept up with this stuff, but it had to do with Wikipedia and also the ICD-11, and I might call it something like when I make the video, it'll probably be about like schizoid erasure, or something like that, something sort of dramatic and, using some of the more left-leaning language, like sometimes people, I don't know, I won't get myself bogged into that. But yeah, so what I experience in terms of like the DID-ish stuff, it's still an issue for me, but mostly these days it just makes me feel really uncomfortable. I do wonder if, so the most productive time of my adult life was probably when I was doing Rainbow Death Ray. That's my girl band. I suppose I've got to remember to keep giving links so that people can look up the stuff that I mention in case they don't know. Oops. Let me get that. And Rainbow Death Ray! I think you can still download that for free. It might ask you for your email, but I've never actually used anyone's email. I think there's a way I can turn off the email thing, but I haven't got around to it. So, sorry, you might have to put your email in to get the free download, but it's there, and I still have CDs if you want to buy them. And now that I have a PO box as a return address, I can send them to you more happily. Yeah, anyway, so that period of time, Rainbow Death Ray, I think, was the most productive time in my adult life because I was running the band, I was doing so much work for the band, to the point of burnout. I also had, like, the closest I've ever gotten to a full-time job at the time, and, I was managing all that and having a sort of more of a kind of social life. And when I talk to people about that time, I tend to say, like, yeah, that's when I was on antidepressants, so it makes sense that that was a productive time in my life. But the thing that I realize I haven't mentioned as much is that that's also the time in my life where I was humoring the different parts of me a bit more. So obviously the destroyer part, but I also had that M3 part, for those of you who've been on my channel long enough to remember that whole thing. But yeah, as I said earlier, the M3 part was the part of me that dealt with relationships, because that is so not my thing. Like, I even remember the day that it sort of, I don't know, appeared in my mind or split off, or I don't know, like I was crossing the road and it was like bam, and I almost fell over. That was very strange. And yeah, it did feel like I wasn't me anymore, and so I was able to do relationships for a bit. Eventually, I think when the destroyer part of me fucked off to wherever it went for a few years, it sort of took that with it. So I think it's associated with that somehow. I think because, like my ex was probably one of the first people, definitely the first person in real life that I was properly open with about that part of me. And so I think in trying to get me closer to this guy, it's almost like that destroyer part of me was like, the only way this is going to happen is if there's a relationship, and that's how it kind of convinced me to hang out with him in a way. I know this probably sounds crazy, but this is like sort of the experience I had. And so because I had that extra part of me that was dealing with the relationships, then it got closer to him for a few years. And I think that might also be why I forgave so much of the bullshit, because I was in a different state of mind. And so that relationship broke up. I tried a few more relationships, and then that destroyer part of me was just like, this is not going the way it was, like, this is all crap. Is this all, I think the words that popped into my head were, is this all that, like, is this the best that's going to happen? I don't remember the words, sorry. It was something like that. And then I had this feeling of like, suddenly that part of me is gone. And then so I couldn't maintain the relationships after that. I did have an incident with my ex, like when I was still with him, where he asked me to suppress that part of me, and I could not show him any affection. So I think it is all tied into that same thing somehow. We have an M3 here, I think. Yeah. And we also have an M4 and an M7 and an M8, I think. I'm not sure. I think M8 is the maid. Sorry, I just went Aussie for a moment there. Yeah, I think M8 is the highest number that I'm aware of. But yeah, no, we've got them too. But yeah, no, I think the M4 goes onto West Connects, like all the tunnels and shit, and I accidentally, because like, you know, when I used to drive out to band prac, I would go on the M4, and then they built all these tunnels, and I accidentally went home via the tunnels, and that was an experience, because I was like, oh shit, like the thing that bothers me about tunnels is making sure I get in the right lane to drive out in the right, I hate driving, and I hate driving in tunnels even more. I made it, but also I think, I don't know if this is still a problem, but GPS wouldn't work in the tunnel. So like the GPS was guessing where I was, and I'm like, I hope I'm in the right place, trying to pay attention to all the signs, like, ah. Anyway, so the M4 is not a road I like to drive on if I can avoid it, and if I don't have band prac, I don't have to drive on the M4. But no, I try and get public transport as much as I can. Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry, I never really came up with names for the parts of me. It was more of a, like, that sort of clinical, you can see the maths science part of me at work there. And so, like, technically, the way that I had it was like the M1, M2, M3. And so M1 being like my normal state of being, M2 being the destroyer part, but of course it's never going to accept M2, so that's why it's destroyer chose its own little title. M3, I don't know, at one point M0 is like the observing version of me, but I don't know, if you take it from an ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy kind of perspective, that's not really a separate part, it's just a separate way of viewing yourself, or I don't know, it all gets confusing at some point, because a lot of this is like, you could really go through and structure, like even without the feeling of disconnect that I experience, I think even a regular person without issues, healthy, all that kind of stuff, could look at themselves and like sort of give names to different parts, like this is the work version of me, this is the home version of me, relationship version of me, like anyone could do that kind of stuff. And I think the thing that I need to be careful of is making sure I don't blur the lines. So there's the ones that are definitely feel like separate parts of me, and then there's the more normal kind of categorizations, and like just making sure I don't overlap and fuzz those out, like with the M0 kind of thing. But yeah, a really sort of sterile way of looking at it. Kind of funny to think about. Anyway, where was I going with that whole story? So this was in the book you recommended about multiple selves. Oh yeah, I think multiplicity, I did get a, hang on, I think, oh, what happened there? Sorry, things, let me fix that, there we go. No, just the computer's freaking out because I'm doing the wrong things, so, oh my god, really? Computer, can you not? Maybe if I do that, there, okay, now, let me get onto my desktop. I do have the, oh my god, I think because I put in some new programs, it doesn't know which program to open things on. So yeah, Rita Carter was the author. The People You Are, The New Science of Personality. And I think she might have changed the title at some point and called it something to do with multiplicity. But yeah, it's very much about the different parts of you and sort of a theory of how your memories are being, like your memories are in this interconnected web, and depending on where your thoughts are at a given time, you're closer to certain memories, and that can sort of give you the impression of being a particular person. But when you're in a different situation and you're using different memories, you're more in this area now, and you're a slightly different person in that way. And so it's sort of like, you know, even a regular person can have all these different aspects. Just checking that again. Yeah, so even a regular person can have these different aspects, and I think Dad's home and he doesn't know I'm live streaming, so if he comes and says hello, we can all wave at my dad. And Hope's come back in. So where was I going with that? I'm just a bit distracted because there's sounds out there again. Yeah, no, so that most productive part of my life, I do feel, yes, it was when I was doing Rainbow Death Ray and all that, and I tell people that's when I was on antidepressants, because I was on antidepressants. I do feel like they gave me an extra energy, and they probably did help in some way, apart from like destroying my appetite and making me really, really skinny. And God, it took so long to get to the weight that I am now, but I've managed to keep this weight for a number of years now, so well done me. Yeah, I was way too underweight. So I think antidepressants did help, but the thing that I don't tell people that often is, yeah, that is that time in my life where I was humouring definitely the destroyer part of me, and then I guess by extension that M3, but like I was trying to bring more of the different parts of me into my life and trying to navigate things better. And I wonder if it's not just the antidepressants, maybe it's like bringing in more of myself. I was maybe able to tap into more of a motivation and like, I don't know, use that in a way. And sorry, there's doors open and I can hear things in the kitchen. I might have to get a little bit awkward for a few minutes here until we move on. That's why I like having doors closed out towards the kitchen. How did I get onto this whole thing? But yeah, so like I do wonder if maybe I'm struggling to find my place in my life because I'm just staying so much in my like regular way of being, and I don't really know what I like. To be honest, I kind of just keep doing the things that I used to do, and that's under the assumption that I just have depression, because if I just have depression, then in theory, if I keep doing the things I used to like, when the depression lifts, I'll already be doing the things that I like, and then I'll be happier. And also, maybe if I do the things that I like, that'll cheer me up. And so that's been my strategy for a number of years. Of course, last year I discovered, actually, I've got schizoid, and maybe it's more complicated than that. So, yeah, and, you know, obviously I've been doing the same thing for a while and haven't seen any results. And so I do wonder if maybe part of my problem in just being so flat all the time is because I'm not accepting what other parts of me are maybe more interested in, or the problem is I don't really know how to even access that properly. And I don't know if that's the full story, because also maybe I am enjoying certain things and I'm just disconnected from the feeling of enjoyment. Because I had such a long depression, you know, I don't want to go back to what that was like 6 or 7 years ago. And so maybe I've learned to cut off some of the depression, because I think, like, you know, as I said earlier in the stream, I do have these ups and downs, and there's some days where I just do not function, and it's like that full-on depression again. But then the next day, maybe I'll be okay again. I don't know. And so I've sort of wondered if maybe I am just constantly depressed, but I'm able to cut it off sometimes, and it's just when I don't get enough sleep that I can't bury that or something. And so it comes back, and it's actually always been there. How did I get on to, what point was I trying to make with that? I forget. As like a theory of why I'm not making progress. Oh yeah, so maybe because I'm cutting off Like, maybe I'm subconsciously cutting off the negative emotions because they did get to such a bad point. Uh-oh. I know he's walking past. Maybe I did get to such a point that it just became too painful to properly experience depression, and so most of the time my brain's trying to shut it out, except when it can't. And I wonder if in trying to cut off some of those depressed feelings, maybe it's cutting off some of the more positive feelings as well. I don't know if that's a thing, because maybe I'm personifying the brain too much, and that's something I worry about with dissociation as well, because like they talk about, oh, it's the brain's defense against your, you know, whatever's been happening to you, and it's almost as if, like, I guess the brain could do defending kind of stuff, but they make it sound a little bit too, I'm on the internet, wave, you're online. Good night. Oh, Hopi, did you want a pat? You can have a pat from me. Dad just doesn't want to be on the camera. I know. Did I steal your dad pat? I'm sorry. Oh. He sort of come to expect that Dad will pat him. And of course today I'm streaming, so yeah. What was I waiting for? Oh, yes. Bye, Dad. So I think he's going upstairs, and I'm just gonna pause for a moment until he's gone. Stay. I'm just checking. Okay, yeah, we're good. Sorry, Hopi, sorry. You can stay there. No need to get up. I know. Should invite him to join the stream. Well, I thought if Mikey was going to get up. Mikey's got a new computer. That's what I spent most of today doing, setting that up for him and trying to, like, Mikey-proof a computer. I think I finally worked out how to get his account to be a guest account. So, bring Mum in as a guest star. Mum would take over. You know, she says she's not a performer, but you put her in front of a camera. There was one where I was in the car with her a few years back, and yeah. Oh, and just like anytime there's a camera on, she just can't help herself. So, you know, I keep telling her to start her own channel, but, you know. Okay, sorry, I'm burping a bit. Still that Thai Valentine's Day with Mum kind of thing. Yeah, anyway. So, where was I up to? Now that he's gone upstairs, my brain can get back into gear. Oh, okay, so I was talking about how maybe the most productive time in my life was when I was humouring more of the different parts of me, but I don't know that I could do that again. I mean, all this stuff sort of came back, well, really only the Destroyer part. I haven't had the relationshipy part come back. And I'm not sure that it would. Because, like, even though it was able to handle the relationship stuff for me, I can actually see where it wasn't, like a real sort of thing. It was sort of handling it and trying to convince me that I liked people, but I can still see the sort of, like, artificial thing. I don't know how to describe it. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again now that I understand, and like I'd just be super suspicious of it. I know I should be open to the idea because like relationships, like we're a social species and it makes sense to do all that kind of stuff, but I don't see it happening again. Something wild would have to happen for my brain to do that again. But yeah, no, with the Destroyer thing, that came back in about 2018. Definitely by the time Venom came out, because that's sort of a bookmark in my mind, because I went and saw that with a friend, and it was just it set things off so much that I actually told her, hey, here's a crazy thing you didn't know about me for the past 4 years. Anyway, yeah, so I definitely remember Venom and just being like, oh my god, I was not prepared for this sort of a video, and of course now you can see it's on my shelf. Not Venom 2, because that didn't really so much, but... Oh, Moon Knight definitely did, and I'm still waiting for Disney to release that on DVD, because we don't have Disney Plus anymore. I watched Moon Knight. I watched the first 5 episodes in one day, and then the next morning got up early to watch the last one, because I just Like, my brain was just like... So God help us when I finally get that on DVD, but I'm still making through my list. I've been watching the Danny Phantom, which, despite being a cartoon about a 14-year-old boy, actually is quite dark and has plenty of stuff in there in its own way. Especially season 1. I'm not that far through season 2, despite... And Cam will laugh at me because they're only like 20-minute episodes and I'm still struggling to get through it. Venom 2 had a little bit of the inner conflict stuff, but it was really in Venom 1 where most of the stuff that's relevant to me happened. Once they kind of make friends, it's sort of like not so relevant. Like, I know they make friends in the first movie, but it's not until towards the end. At the beginning of Venom 2, they have a bit of a clash, but then it goes completely off into what the fuck world, don't care. So yeah, that part of me mostly reacts if there's an ongoing conflict. If there's too much acceptance too early. And this is why I can't relate to DID people, because often they're talking about how, like, they do have parts they don't get on with, but they also have, like, very normal parts, and, like, one will handle this situation and one will handle that situation, and it's just, like, boring normal situations, and they're friends with each other, and I'm just, like, boring. But yeah, no, so, Venom 2018... That's when all that stuff started happening, and I started getting more frustrated feelings, and then, like, you know, is it, like, intrusive thoughts or something? And sometimes, like, imagining doing things. That's why Dexter's funny. So, like, the ones where he's, like, standing at the post office in the queue, and just, like, imagines grabbing a pen and stabbing someone. Gee, that's not relatable at all. Anyway, so 2018, since that flared up again, yeah, until recently I was mainly thinking of it as a delusion thing, and so don't poke the bear, which I'm not always successful, because of course, then I go and buy shirts like this, because the brain is like, have to have it. I'm like, but we've got so many shirts already. Nope, gotta buy it. Okay, well, a shirt is harmless, right? I can probably keep doing these little things in terms of, like, dealing with that going on in my brain, but when it comes to the things that I used to do, like, I used to let it run a lot more of my life and, like, my decisions. Like, I still kept a sort of lid on things from not going too out of hand, and I think that's what sort of pissed it off in the end, because there's too many rules. But where was I going with that? Sorry, the too many rules thing, and then my brain's like, yes, there's too many rules, and I got distracted. Shit. This is turning into one of those live streams where I say a lot more than I meant to say at the start. But hey, I'm in a mood, let's make the most of it. If you're gonna ask, like, questions, do it while my brain is in sharing mode. 2018, yeah, no, okay, so since then I've been treating it like a delusion and trying not to humor it too much. But sometimes it's really hard, and I just have to, like, one of the things that happens a lot is, like, I'll just need to watch some kind of a movie. They don't have the effects that they used to, but I just feel like I have to watch the same movies, even though I've watched them so many times before. I haven't watched Fight Club as many times as Limp Bizkit says in that song yet, I think, but feel like my brain's on track. Too many rules. Number 1, not showing on live stream. Yeah, well, that's certainly not going to happen. I don't do that in front of anyone anymore. Anyway, hang on, what? Yeah, so sometimes, like, even when I've been in that mode of treating it like a delusion, I'll still feel a need to watch something. And okay, that's not a terrible thing. It does tend to make it worse, though, and then I will just have, like... Sometimes it's affected my sleep, because that part of me is, like, wanting to do stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm so fucking tired, and if we don't sleep, tomorrow is going to be terrible, and so it can take a while to get to sleep. Although I have other reasons that it can be hard to get to sleep. The worst one at the moment is I keep watching too much YouTube, which I realize is hilarious for me to tell you guys, because you guys are watching YouTube right now. But, like, I've really gotten back into that, watching YouTube, watching a lot of stuff that I don't even know why I'm watching it, and playing Neopets, and I'm just like... That Neopets thing where you go every day and spin the thing, and, like, after, is it 30 days or so, you get 100k Neo points. That one is really annoying, because I keep doing that, And I don't need 100k Neo points. I already got the top level of Neopet's bank account, so what is there to work towards? I'm not spending it on anything. It's just that hoarding instinct. God damn you, Neopets. So I missed it. I missed it in the past 24 hours, so now that it's reset, I don't have to do it and I can try and focus on other areas in my life. Do you have the bank account limit? Don't tell me there's a limit! I don't need to know that. Don't give me more reasons to play it. No, because I'm an addict. Why is that the limit? Why, that doesn't make sense. Why would that be the limit? Is it something to do with, like, something weird about bits? Like how old operating systems weren't designed to cope with the year 2000. Is it something like that? And then there's another one in 2038, or maybe that's the Linux one. I don't remember the exact dates. The amount of data stored in a float or whatever. Yeah, no, that's a really weird number, and I guess it not being round, that probably helps me not care so much about it. Oh, shit. Anyway, so no, let me try and get back on track. Training things like a delusion, data structure thingo, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe it's something to do with, like, your account details, or... Anyway, hang on, what was I talking about before I got distracted with Neopets? Oh yeah, the whole thing about affecting my sleep. Yeah, I think Neopets has been affecting my sleep. Neopets plus YouTube, because, like, I'll be doing something on Neopets, and it's gonna take a little bit longer, like, trying to max out how much I can earn from a game in the day. Especially Neg Sweeper. For some reason, I'm really into Neg Sweeper. Which only has a limit of 3,000, but yeah, no, and I'll be working on that, and I'm not quite finished yet, so I'll put on a YouTube video, but then I'll finish a bit on Neg Sweeper, but the YouTube video is still going, so I'll find another game to play on Neopets, and then that game's still going, so when the YouTube video runs out, so I'll find another YouTube video, and it just keeps going, and it's not good for me, and I realize it's ruining my life being addicted to that kind of stuff, so I need to stop, because I'm not being productive. It's just like, when I'm low energy, it's one of those easy ways to just pass the time until I'm ready to sleep, but it's affecting my good days as well, and so I think I just need to, like, you know, just stay away, because I'm getting too easily addicted to it, so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm still watching, like, occasional YouTube. I just need to try really hard not to play the Neopets, because that's too much, and I get stuck in a vortex. Anyway, so back to the back to the thing about, like, you know, watching the movies triggers the things in my head more, makes it hard to go to sleep. Okay, that's pretty benign, but, like, that, while I was treating it more like a delusion, that's sort of about as much as would happen. I don't actually remember when I mucked up my poetry book, though. Is this the one? Yeah, I don't remember when that happened. That happened when I was in that state of mind, which is not too bad, but, like, if you've seen is it Dougray Scott? Is that how you pronounce it? Dougray Scott, that guy, I don't know, he was in the Jekyll and Hyde movie. In that one, there's that scene where he's explaining to the lawyer chick how it was when he first, you know, shot up with drugs and turned into the Mr. Hyde character. The way they depicted that was very relatable, because all the Mr. Hyde character does is he comes up the stairs, looks around the doorways like, wow, and then sort of just, like, waltzes around the place, kicks a few books off the bookshelf, and then goes and sits at his desk, gets out you know, those letter opener things, and, like, digs a big slash into, like, some notes on the table, and that's about it, and then he just sort of is, like, sitting back and just chilling out. The way that they depicted that goddamn scene is just Yeah, that one's a little bit too relatable, but like, you know, you sort of get the idea where it's just benign stuff, it's not too bad. Why did I bring that up? I don't know. I'm really in oversharing mode. Yeah, anyway, so that's sort of the most that really happens these days, and not even to that level these days. I think, you know, I've done so well to just be like, this is not a thing. Sometimes if it does build up a lot, you have to give some concessions. But yeah, no, mainly sleep that it affects. But so since the schizo diagnosis, recognizing that I have trauma, sort of accepting that maybe I do have some dissociation issue, and then my old psychologist, the one I was seeing last year, the thing she said is like, you know, if this is a part of you, it has a right to be expressed, but also you have to treat it like a teenager with restrictions. And I'm just like, I don't know where the line is for that. Like, how much do you let something that messed up in your head be expressed? And then, like, you know, if it's a teenager, how do you put... I mean, I feel like I'm probably a teenager. I can't look after myself. A lot of people think I'm a teenager still somehow. And I have the sleep pattern of a teenager because I just, you know, teenagers tend to sleep in and all that, and I'm seem stuck in that kind of a pattern. But anyway, never mind that. I was talking about what my psychologist, the old psychologist, said, and this is, I think, before we really talked to the DID specialist as well. But yeah, no, trying to keep that in mind, like, okay, so I'm not having delusions, I accept that. Then maybe it is a dissociation thing and this is a part of me that for whatever reason I'm disconnected from. Maybe it's denial, or maybe it is a trauma thing. I don't really know why though. Like, I can understand how my traumas caused schizoid. I'm a little bit more like, I'm not sure why I have this particular character in my head. Maybe it's something to do with the Catholic upbringing, I don't know, because Catholicism has its own... I was not in the right environment growing up, I think. But yeah, no, so if I accept that it's some kind of part of me, then I should make some concessions, and so I guess that's why I end up buying shirts. Other shirt. That one is a lot harder to point at. That one. Yeah, like, that's pretty benign. But if it's something that I need to humor in a way that would make me feel more motivated, in the way when I was doing Rainbow Death Ray, also on antidepressants, but I don't know how much each thing helped me. Because, like, I had been on antidepressants for a while at that point. Maybe it needed a few years to build up, or... I don't know, it's so hard to figure out what causes what in the brain, and, you know, a lot of this stuff ends up making me feel like I'm just a meat puppet anyway. Nothing's real, and I have no control over what my brain's doing. But yeah, so if that's a thing, if it's something that I need to humor a little bit more to get the motivation back, because I think a lot of, like, I mean, Patreon, my cult, a lot of you have seen on Patreon when I do make art, it tends to skew towards that. Like, in that period where it all disappeared, and then I went to uni and I was studying art, I actually did explore some different areas finally. But yeah, once things come back, I'm sort of back to the same old kinds of art, with occasionally go into other areas, but there is a lot of that same sort of duality type stuff, and that part of me trying to express stuff. Where was I going with this? Well, like, I guess that's a sign that maybe that part of me is what motivates the creativity, or maybe primarily motivates the creativity, and so maybe I do need to tap into more of that to get my motivation back. Maybe antidepressants won't be enough. Maybe I do need to hear it, but then I don't really know how to do that, because the sorts of things that I was doing back then, not always safe, and I don't want to talk about that. I haven't even told my psychologist or my doctor a lot of the stuff that went on, and the things that could have turned out really bad. I'm not going to talk about that stuff here, so I'm just going to be really careful. But you know, there are things that I used to do in that time that I just will not ever do again. I'm not going to let that happen, or I don't know, it would have to be circumstances that would have to be very specific for any of that to happen again. And so that is how I used to handle it at that time when I was letting more of it run my life. And it seemed like that part of me was not happy with that level of restriction. So, like, I can't go further than that. But, so, like, you know, if I go for something less, like, that's probably not going to be enough. So I'm sort of like, what do I even do? And that's what's frustrating about the DID specialist not giving me any answers, because I still don't know what to do. I mean, I guess I didn't tell her everything, but she did. I gave her some pretty extensive notes, which she does seem to have read. And yeah, like, so she's read the stuff that I've said, and still she just wants to sit and talk to me for ages and sort of like get the feel of the ebb and flow of the things going on in my life. Oh my god. I just want to know what to do with myself, you know? What's this ooh? Ooh, my brain is sort of thinking ooh in a Monty Python sort of way. Ooh. What are we oohing about? Tell me what you're oohing about. Oh dear. Uh-oh, I'm running out of water. While you're oohing, I'm just gonna real quick, get myself some more water. Are we still oohing? Yeah, anyway, so I don't really know how to manage, like, if I need to. I don't know if I even need to, but if I need to have a bit more balance between the different parts of my mind or whatever, I don't know how. I don't know how to approach it. I don't know, yeah, like, what I can even do. And I don't want to, I don't know. And I just didn't get any answers from the dissociation specialist. And then she wants to talk about my emotional detachment instead, as if that, and you know, like, apart from EMDR, I mean, she wanted to mainly talk about EMDR, but she mentioned, like, as another approach, parts work. But I don't need parts work for my emotional detachment. I don't see the emotional detachment as a different version of me or anything. It's just a thing I do. It's not parts that I am, if that makes sense. It's just a thing I do, is I cut off the emotions. Oh, and so, okay, Linkin Park released a video, a song, I think it might be called Lost, and so I was watching that, and, you know, obviously the singer, decided not to live anymore a while back, and, you know, like, I was never that into it, and also I don't have a lot of emotions, so I didn't really feel sad at the time. It's just like, you know, people are dying all the time, and people are choosing not to live all the time. So anyway, but no, with this song, so I think it's taken from, like, an old track that, like, or a demo or something he recorded, and then they've produced it and turned it into a song and put an anime kind of vibe to it. And I do actually remember I was watching that and I started to feel something, I think sad, but the moment I really started to feel anything, I noticed my brain just shut it off. Very interesting experience, but I don't see that as, like, different parts of me. It's just my brain going, this is something that we don't want to feel right now. Bye-bye to that feeling. You know, like, it's like, now I'm paying attention to that sort of thing, and I definitely noticed that. There was also another thing. So, I mean, are we still talking about, you know, the psychology stuff, or shall we move on to the other present to myself? You've all gone a bit quiet. Maybe I will move on, because how long have we been going? Oh my god, I've been going for 2 hours. That's a lot of talking. Well, any questions about or any comments about the psychology stuff before I move on to my next present to myself? I'll give you a moment to think about that. I've been talking too much. And I don't know what that ooh was about. Someone gonna tell me what the ooh. Ooh. Oh. No. Oh. Oh. Okay. Well, I'll move on to the other present to myself. So, because I was out yesterday seeing this specialist psychologist, there's like a big shopping center nearby, and last week, you know, like I got into the area a little bit too early, so I was kind of just wandering around, and it took me a while to remember that I wanted to get this, and so this time I was prepared, and I'd also done a little bit of research. So, come here. It's a JB Hi-Fi bag. Yay! So, like, you know how I got all those games, and I know I should finish playing Nexamon, but I got all those games during the Black Friday sales, and one of them was Super Meat Boy, and I just can't contemplate the idea of playing Super Meat Boy on a keyboard. So I finally got me controller! Ta-da! I got a Xbox Pulse Red, and also I got the little battery pack thingy, and with a cable, so it's quite a long cable, and you can play through the cable, so I don't need to rely on Bluetooth. Anyway, yeah, no, so and I know it says $94 on it, but I got a discount, because it's JB Hi-Fi. Always ask for a discount at JB Hi-Fi for those kinds of products, because chances are they'll give it. They didn't give me a discount on this, but I got a discount on this, and so it ended up costing less than what the regular white one costs. And yeah, I was gonna get the white, I think it was a black one actually, with a cable included in the box, but when I asked her about the battery situation, she said none of them come with batteries, so you can actually get the battery pack, and it also comes with a cord, and so it's cheaper to get it that way if you're going to get the battery pack anyway, otherwise you end up with two cords, and the corded one, like, to get a cord in the box costs an extra $10. Must be a hell of a cord. Anyway, Pulse Red, because, like, that's my brand, right? The Red Destroyer thing. But yeah, the reason I went for Xbox, like, you know, I used to be more into PlayStation. I think Sony, like, you know, Sony, at least back in the day, good company, and Xbox was kind of like the one that you got if you couldn't afford the PlayStation. I don't know, I'm thinking about my ex. But, you know, there's a reason it's called the Xbox. Anyway, no, because, yeah, he'd play that even when we'd arranged to go do a movie, and then wonder why I was upset and try and blame me for being upset when he's the one who wouldn't stop playing the damn game so that we could get to the movie instead of missing it. But anyway, I'm sure I've told that story before. The reason I went with Xbox, yeah, I used to play PlayStation. We had a PlayStation 3 was probably the last one we had, and we had a PlayStation, I think we had 1 and 2 when we were younger. So I'm very used to the PlayStation style, although I know from PlayStation 4 they had that weird touchpad in the middle. I'm not sure about that, but I was used to holding the PlayStation controllers, and Sony, yeah, I like Sony. I only recommend Sony TVs to my family, for example, and Sony made Aibo. I wish they would release Aibo again in Australia, because then I would waste my money on that, but maybe it's better that they don't. Aibo's their robot dog, but yeah, with the controllers. And so if everything was equal, I'd probably go with the Sony PlayStation controller. But when I was looking it up, it sounds like to connect to a computer, it's better to stick with Microsoft, because obviously Windows 10 is what I'm using, and Windows, Microsoft make Xbox, and so it's just going to work. Whereas apparently with PlayStation, sometimes there can be issues, and same with Nintendo, and it sort of depends. And I just thought, you know, one of the problems I'm having, especially not having a lot of motivation, is if there's a lot of barriers to me doing something, I often won't do something. You know, like, the harder it is to get started, the less likely I am to do it. And so, I mean, I could have gotten a generic controller, but I just want something that I know will work. And, you know, these being a little bit premium, you know, and what am I spending my money on anyway? yeah, so I thought I'll get the fancy Xbox One. And I have used Xbox controller. While I was with my ex was the first time I played Super Meat Boy anyway, and so I originally played Super Meat Boy on an Xbox controller. So yeah, I'll get that going at some point, and we can watch me how bad I am at Super Meat Boy. Although, should I finish next one first? I don't know. Maybe I can just alternate between the games, but I still have a lot to do. Anyway, so I bought this before seeing the dissociation specialist, and yeah, I went to EB Games first and asked them, but they didn't have like the one with the cable, and I didn't see anything about the batteries and so on, and you know, and the cable. And the guy was nice, but I just sort of thought, I'll go and check out JB Hi-Fi, because I had seen the one that came with the cable. And then when I talked to the chick there, she had all the tattoos and piercings, and I'm like, I'm in the right place. Even though I don't have tattoos and piercings, like being in the heavy metal scene, you know, I guess my brain just looks for alternative people, because, yeah, like, I know I don't fit in with the mainstream, so I was like, yeah, this is comfortable. And she really seemed to know her stuff, and, you know, I said, look, I want an Xbox controller, and, you know, what about the cables, what about the batteries, and, yeah, she found that, was hiding behind some other ones, she found that for me, and then gave me the deal on this so that it was cheaper, and, yeah, no, I chose the red because it was only $5 more than the white one, so, like, why not? And so, after buying all this stuff, and this comes back to some psychology stuff, so, you know, I got a good deal, I got exactly what I wanted, and I got a fun colour. The only thing that would make this better is if the underside was black instead of white, because that's more DestroyerMariko. Although, the DestroyerMariko, like, my little logo thing does have white in it, so this is, like, it's very me. It was funny, though, because, like, she said, oh, we just got the pink one in, and sort of, like, I don't know if pink's your style, and I'm like, no, I'm going red. So maybe she picked me as being a little bit more girly than I am, but anyway, so I got exactly what I wanted, got a good deal on it, got the little extra things, all that kind of stuff, right? I actually felt good after buying it. And so this comes back to retail therapy. So, when I was really badly depressed, back to some story time. When I was really badly depressed a few years back, one of the things that seemed to help is, like, at the end of 2017 and then, you know, over into early 2018, I spent a month in Japan with my relatives, and I went in with, like, you know, I had saved up some money, and I went in with a mission to go and find goth clothes. This is before I had the whole punk rave Australia thing. So I like, you know, it's hard to find goth clothes in Sydney, and I wasn't really that into online shopping at the time, because, you know, I just didn't trust it. And, you know, really with punk rave Australia, if they hadn't sent me that stuff for free, would I have ever considered much buying online? Because I did try a couple times to buy online, just didn't have great experiences. But yeah, so I went to Japan with that intention to buy more gothic kinds of stuff, because at the time I thought AD Destroyer would, so that's that collab. I will get you the AD Destroyer link, give me a moment. Copy AD Destroyer. Yeah, so I thought AD Destroyer was going to get going a lot sooner than it did. It didn't get going until 2020, and then we didn't really do anything after that. But, you know, I thought that that was going to be a thing, and so I went to Japan and thought, I've got to get stage clothes, and so I had a mission, and it was sort of like going on a hunt and trying to buy the things that I needed, and, I mean, there were other things that made me feel better, like getting away from Centrelink, telling them basically at the time to just get lost because they were really holding me back from recovering, getting out of my usual environment, and like while I was there for a month, but there were some days I actually didn't really leave the house, even though I was on holiday, but, you know, like at least every second day I would be out and about, so, you know, I was doing different things, experiencing different things. But I do think the retail therapy played a role in helping me recover, and, you know, having a mission, going on a hunt, having a successful hunt, and then, yeah, and I think this is sort of a similar thing, and I did write, let me go back to my psychology diary again. So something I wrote, this was on the same day, this was yesterday, so after seeing the dissociation specialist, I actually wonder if I've got some schizoid denial about certain emotions. It's a lot easier for me to focus on frustration with the dissociation specialist today than the actual good feeling after buying the controller, but I do remember smiling even when I'd left the social interaction with the shop assistant. If I smile around people, that's not always real, but if I smile on my own, I think that's more legit. If there's no one to perform for, I'm probably actually feeling a thing. And I think I did write earlier, that I finally got the gaming control, was able to get what I wanted, successfully asked for a deal. So I was feeling pretty good afterwards. Retail therapy isn't sustainable, but it seems to help sometimes. Yeah, I did have that sort of experience where buying the controller, I did feel good after it. And it kind of makes me laugh because, then after that, I saw the dissociation specialist, and it just left me with that feeling of wanting to quit all my therapy, all the psychology, psychiatry, and so on. So it kind of makes me laugh that the retail therapy yesterday was more successful than seeing the dissociation specialist. So that's a thing, and that's like another gift to myself. The tea turtle stuff that I've only just opened, it took a while to get to me, so I actually bought that a while ago. But yeah, this was yesterday. Oh my god, that was yesterday. It feels like ages ago. But yeah, so that's kind of an interesting thing, and it does show that I can still feel some good things, but they tend to be a bit fleeting, and, buying stuff. Retail therapy, not sustainable. You need money to keep doing that all the time, instead of just like going through phases of saving and spending. I mean, it helps that I don't have a lot of expenses, but depending on how much therapy I do this year, once I run out of government-funded sessions, which is coming up very fast, I am going to have to pay more for that. So, yeah, anyway, yay for Xbox controller. I can play Super Meat Boy, stuff and things. Just double check that that's still going. Cool. Anything else to say about psychology, retail therapy? Yeah, well, at least I found something that can help, and I just got to find like a more sustainable way to feel the positive emotions. And like, especially when I was really badly depressed, I tried not to buy too much stuff because I did recognize that, like, before that really big depression, I was buying, like, you can see the dragon shelf up there. I do have a video I made about the dragon shelf. I think you can actually see a bit of it in my channel trailer. But yeah, I used to buy a lot of knickknacks. And then when I got really badly depressed, I just didn't want anything anymore. And, could see that buying stuff, like, it is that sort of temporary good feeling, especially for knickknacks that don't have any particular function. They just look nice, or, they just gather dust. So I didn't, there was a period of time where I almost stopped buying anything at all. But I can see how, like, there needs to be some kind of a balance every now and then. Buying myself something nice is not a terrible thing. But yeah, things that I can use are probably better. So like shirts, I can wear shirts. I need shirts. I probably don't need as many as I have, but they are useful. Gaming controller, genuinely going to make the experience of playing that game better. And you're like, yeah, I haven't had anything that looks this good in terms of gaming in a long time. My goodness. Because, we got the PlayStation 3. My brother got that, and I don't even know if it works anymore. And, Mum had a Wii, but I think that's been packed away, never to be seen again. But yeah, wow. This is, like, the first one I've bought for myself, maybe ever. Like, I only ever bought myself Nintendo DS or Game Boy. So it feels it feels a bit too legit for my level of gaming, because I don't really game, at least not properly or any hardcore kind of a way. But yeah, no, thinking about that, so I think we've sort of dropped off. I don't know if anyone's still watching. But yeah, no, something I've been thinking about, for anyone still watching or watching on the replay, does anyone else watch Lockpicking Lawyer? Because I've gotten a little bit, I don't know, it's fascinating. And then I find out, like, it does seem like a puzzle, and then I find out that you can actually do lockpicking as a sport. So it's not just about, like, breaking into things, or, I mean, watching Lockpicking Lawyer did make me feel like, in things like Dexter, for example, and those kind of crime shows, you see people picking locks really fast, and I always thought, like, that's that's not real. Like, they couldn't possibly do that. And then lockpicking lawyer comes along and like, you know, if it takes more than a minute for him to open, more than 30 seconds for him to open, you've got yourself a pretty good lock there. Because he's just so good. So it sort of gave me a different respect for what's going on in those TV shows, thinking, okay, that is plausible. But yeah, and apparently they have competitions for that. I actually joined one of the Facebook groups. It doesn't seem that active. And there's supposed to be another group, but their membership's not open, so I can't get in. But yeah, no, I sort of got interested. I don't know if anyone is currently doing lockpicking sport. It just seems like something that might be kind of fun to try, because puzzles, I used to be okay at puzzles, although there is like one of those, you know those ones where they have the rope or like little things and like there's a little loop and you have to get the loop off and then put it back on again, and I was never really great at those, but sort of been looking at the lockpicking thing going, maybe I do want to try it. Like, it seems like one of those things you'd watch on YouTube just for fun. Like, you know, there's a casual navigation channel and it tells you stuff about how boats work. And I'm like, well, I don't ever need this. And so I've been looking at lockpicking lawyer like that. Like, it's just a fascinating thing to watch. I would never try it. But, you know, it turns out J-Car sells lockpicking stuff. But I did have to look into the legal status of it. Apparently it's... Oh, there's one at the Crime Museum. When did you pop back? How long has that comment been there? Oh, okay, not too long. What's at the Crime Museum? What's at the Crime Museum? What are we talking about? Lockpicking stuff or something else? Oh, I know there's a little bit of a delay between me asking a question. I just made it, a lock-picking game for cracking safes. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, so I've sort of been thinking about it as a hobby, and you can actually get, it's pretty easy. I got it in like 20 seconds. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, no, anyway, so, if I wanted to take up lockpicking as like a hobby, is it legal? Okay, so in terms of owning lockpicking stuff in Australia, it is legal to own it, but it's a bit like how you can't just take a knife out in public or take spray cans out in public unless you're transporting them home from the shops, for example, or have some other legitimate reason to be carrying them in New South Wales. I think in different states there are different things. So if you can't carry lockpicking stuff just wherever you go, unless you're like a locksmith, and I actually did look at what it would take to become a locksmith, and it's not for me. But yeah, no, so, or you could have the lockpicking stuff with you if you're going to a lockpicking competition. So I looked at that, so it's legal to just have it at home and just use it as a sort of like puzzle kind of thing, and, you know, I don't know if I'd ever get good enough to do a competition, and a competitive me is not a fun person to be around, so maybe I'd just do it as puzzle, but yeah, legal to have as long as you're not carrying it around looking suspicious, because if you're looking suspicious, the cops can pull you over and be like, what you doing? Why do you have this stuff on you? So that's a tip for anyone in New South Wales. I think New South Wales might be one of the most strict in terms of that kind of stuff, but basically treat it like, you know, knives and spray cans. Okay to have at home, okay to have in an art studio, okay to have if you're a real street artist who's been commissioned and got permission to do stuff, okay if you're like going to cooking school or I don't know, whatever, okay if you're going to competition to pick locks. Okay, so with that in mind, apparently J-Car, I saw on J-Car's website, they sell lock picking stuff. That just blew me away, and that, I think that's like, you know, the extra sign that yes, this is legal, because if you can just walk into a J-Car and buy lock-picking stuff, and they have like little practice locks, but the practice lock they sell, I think it's only got one configuration, and so it's kind of like, So I actually looked at Lock-Picking Lawyer. He has Covert Instruments is the website that he sells his stuff on, and they've got like a lock that you can change the configuration and put like, start off with one pin, and then as you get better at it you can put extra pins, and I was just like, oh, I wonder if I should buy Lock-Picking Lawyer's stuff, support a creator I actually do watch, and then see if I'm any good at it. But when I look at it, I mean, it's a bit pricey and that's fair enough, but what gets me is the shipping cost and also the currency conversion. I'm just like, do I want to spend that much money on a hobby that I might do for a month or two and then could just lose interest in? So yeah, I don't know, like, should I buy lock-picking stuff and try and, you know, have a go at it? If so, should I just get the JCar one, which would be cheaper to start off with, but probably I'd get bored of faster because there's less variation and I'd have to start buying locks specifically to pick? Or should I spend the extra money on the lock-picking lawyer one and hope that there aren't any import restrictions? I mean, I assume if it's legal here, it should be fine, but, you know, I just get a little bit like, what if? What if they think I'm up to no good? But yeah, just something I've been thinking about. Is it worth spending the money on? But, you know, I also just spent money on this, so should I? Or should I, like, have it on a list of things to consider? I think they've got a sale at the moment, though, so that makes things feel a little bit more pressing. That's just something to think about. So, you know, if people are watching this in the replay, put in the comments, do you want to see me try and do lockpicking stuff? Yeah, whether or not I'd get any good at it. Maybe do a review on his stuff if I did get that. Or do a review of the JCar one. But yeah, the JCar one, because it, like, you can buy other practice locks and they're sort of clear, so I think, so you can see what's going on inside. Whereas I think the lockpicking lawyer one, it's like you put them in and then there's also like the different security pins as well. So there's like a lot more combinations you could do, and I can see that I'd probably do that for longer, whereas the JCar one doesn't change and you can see through it. And then they sell a couple other practice locks that are basically the same thing, and then I'd probably get bored of it. I don't know. So that's just something that's gone through my head, whether that's something I should do or not. But yeah, I've been watching his stuff for a while, and like at some point it would be kind of fun to try it. But like there are rules where you shouldn't pick any lock in use, and you should always have permission to do stuff. Because like if you do it wrong, you can break the lock, so and screw it up. So yeah, there's stuff like that. I actually went and looked at like, you know, what are the concerns in terms of legality and you know, the ethics and all that kind of stuff. But with, you know, like, so I've sort of gotten the idea of, okay, here are the things that you can do with it. And then it's sort of decision making. Do I go the cheap route and just get one from JCar? Or do I go the proper, like, you know, taking it a bit more seriously, getting a bit more out of it, and go for the lockpicking lawyer stuff? I don't know. So if anyone has an opinion on that, stick that in the comments for me for later. And so I think, did I ramble about everything I was going to ramble about? Let me just check what I put in the description again. Oh, did the live stream freeze for a bit? No? Okay, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's been a while, so let's chat. More gifts to myself, updates, generally ramble. Yeah, okay, so I think I have covered the main things that I wanted to cover in this live stream. So, yeah, no, it is saying something about, like, no data. So maybe has the stream been a bit dodgy? I suppose no one would be able to tell me if it got dodgy. But yeah, the stream health isn't necessarily saying it's dodgy. I don't know, hopefully by the time YouTube's processed it, you know, the live stream might be a bit more solid than whether or not it's dropping in and out live. It's really hard for me to know on this end, because if I monitor the thing, I get confused watching myself. Anyway, so those are some thoughts. We've been going for quite a long while. Is there anything else? Let me have a quick think. I don't know. I really need to finish setting up my studio space in the other room. I've got the PO box now though, so I should add to my list of video ideas, the PO box. Make a video about the PO box and, like, you know, what are the rules around sending me stuff. I think, like, you know, maybe that's a case for using that green screen place, because, like, you know, I've mentioned before, I'm aware that tracking is a thing, and so if people tried to track me by sending me mail, you know, I don't want to open stuff at home, so I thought I could just go to a park. But if I have access to that library space, I think I've set up the PO box to tell me when things are put in my PO box, so then I can potentially book in to use the space, go up and pick up whatever from the PO box, and then go to the vlog space, and then I could open stuff there. The only problem is, actually, I better not mention that, because then I might give people ideas. Anyway, so I think I covered the main stuff, but if anyone's got any, like, questions while I'm in that sort of sharing mode, although I think I've sort of started to slow down a bit more now, so your last chance to get in some questions while I'm likely to answer stuff a bit more. But so I've got to set up that space in the other room. I've got to make another postcard for Scribe Chronicler now that I finally have the return address sorted out. I've got to do a whole bunch of music stuff, actually, because, you know, I've been putting that off. Oh my god, I have too many hobbies, because there's also now this, you know, I want to make use of this. But I'm glad I bought it yesterday, because I don't know if I'll be going back out that way, and I don't like leaving the house very much, so, you know, I try and get all my stuff done in one go. But I do need to make a list of things that I need to get when I go out to the shops next, because, like, there are things that I need, and I just keep forgetting, so I need to keep track. Like, you know, I think there's some sort of clothes, maybe new pants. What's a significant regret? What's your most embarrassing moment? Regret is a difficult one, because if I hadn't gone through whatever I went through, I wouldn't be who I am now. But then, do I want to be who I am now? Could I have turned out better, or could I have turned out worse? So regret is a little bit of a difficult one. Embarrassing moment, I think my brain's been pretty good at blocking some of those out, so it would be hard for me to bring one up just on the spot. It's the sort of thing where, like, you'll just be walking and your mind will be wandering, and then you'll think of an embarrassing moment, and then, like, I don't know if everyone does this, but sometimes, like, my face will do a thing. Like, I'll have some reaction to the embarrassing moment, even though no one else knows what I was just thinking about or remembering. And so, I don't know, it could potentially turn into another embarrassing moment if anyone saw that happening while I was thinking about it. Yeah. I don't know, you need a more specific question than that, I think. Because, at 3 a.m. when I'm in bed alone with my thoughts. Oh my god, 3 a.m. is too early in the morning. Or too late at night, depending on your perspective, I suppose. Yeah, no, I have too many hobbies. But tomorrow I really want to try and get more of that space set up. And, like, I've got all this, you know, I've got my music, I've got to move my music gear out into the other room. And then I've got to start cleaning up this pile of stuff over here. And then I'm probably going to move the drum kit. And then I'll finally be able to access my bookshelf again. And I've been considering whether, so I've got my cyber wigs up there, but now that I've got that space in my brother's wardrobe, maybe I could move them in there. Although there were some leaks, I can't really use the shelves in there because what day, Cam, you're in Sydney, what day was it when that ridiculous amount of rain came through? Was that Thursday? It must be Thursday, because the next day I had a bad headache and I couldn't go to that gig. Yeah. Anyway, Brain, what were you thinking? No, putting this, I could put it in the wardrobe area because that seemed okay. It was Thursday. Or I could put it on his pull-up bar, because me doing pull-ups with these lack of muscles. Thursday, cool. Yeah, and I had to patch all these leaks coming through the shelves. And so there are some shelves that didn't get leaks, but there are other shelves where I was like, oh, I better not put my stuff there. And I was taping towels to the wall. God, that was a hell of a thing. That rain sort of seemed to just come out of nowhere and sweep through, and you know, and then out the back we have like an undercover washing line, and it actually snuck past and everything there got wet too. That was intense. But yeah, no, thinking of moving my cyberwigs in there, although I do kind of like them up there, but so I've got that black, I don't know if you can just see the black curtain there, and I've thought about making that a sort of audio recording, like when I'm doing covers on YouTube, because I do have some covers that I'm still thinking of getting to. I could set up more of a recording space there. Now, I did say I'm moving my music gear into the other room, and so I'll take my M-Box to the other room, and that's what I usually do my covers on, but I do have my Apogee still, and so I could bring my laptop back in here, connect it to the Apogee, and then I think I should still be able to do my covers in the same basic way, because that's how I recorded Rainbow Death Ray. I did that on my Apogee. So if I set up in here to have that as almost like a permanent recording space, then maybe it'll be easier for me to do covers instead of having to like drag my mic out from the corner and drag this and connect everything. I can just set up like a recording space. So if I get rid of all this stuff, then I can stand over there. I would still do most of my vlogs from here, I think, but then also in that other room, sort of in that wardrobe space, I could do videos when there are too many people around, and maybe that would make that easy as well, although that would have to be on the phone, which means editing. I actually need to do a shitload of file management on my computer as well, because, you know, video files are big, and they do add up after a while, and I've been saving... like an idiot, I've been saving a lot of my RAW files instead of just the ones that I publish to YouTube, as if I'm ever going to look at old footage. Like, there's a reason... I think keeping an archive of my YouTube stuff, fair enough, because I lost a lot of my very first videos, and that's a bit sad, because it would be interesting to go back and see what I was like then. And, you know, some of the, especially the vampire videos and the videos where I did talk more about what the Destroyer thing was like to me then, I can't go back to that anymore. There's only a few that still exist on my channel from back then. But yeah, so it makes sense to keep the published videos, I think. But all this raw footage, the stuff that I edited, I don't think I need that. And then I've got, like, you know, the punk rave stuff, I kept too much of the extra footage of that. So I need to go through and, like, delete a whole bunch of stuff and then put stuff onto... I've still got a hard drive that I bought for the purpose of backing up my video stuff and just haven't got around to using it. So I need to do a lot of that as well. Oh my god, there's too much for me to do in my life. I've got too many hobbies. Oh, I'm so all over the place. And then I just don't have the motivation to do it, and then I'm spending too much time on Neopets. I need to get into more of the time management. And, like, you know, talking about motivation, this is going back to the dissociation specialist. You know, I mentioned how I lack motivation, and, you know, but I realize, you know, the main thing I need to do is, like, tell myself I'm going to spend 5 minutes doing a thing, because once I get started, chances are I'll keep going. Like, I know that is a strategy. And she said, like, She told me that's more of a time management thing. And, I mean, so when I'm in therapy, in that sort of situation, like, you know, if you have me thinking on my feet like that, I'm not always good at pushing back, and it can take a while for me to think, like, what do I really think about this? And so I didn't push back at the time, but, like, yeah, it's a time management thing, but I think also it's a motivation thing, because sometimes the reason you don't get started is it seems too difficult, and, you know, that... Like, you might have motivation, but if the difficulty level is too high, you know, it's not enough to... The motivation is not enough to overcome that difficulty level. So what you need to do is reduce the difficulty level. Okay, I'll just do 5 minutes, or I'll just turn on the computer. I actually stumbled on, a while back, like a few years back, I think I shared a Jordan Peterson video, because he has this course called self-authoring. I actually have access to it. I just never really did it. But this video is like, someone was asking, what if I don't even have the motivation to do the self-authoring thing? Because that's supposed to help you figure out what you're doing in your life and, you know, get into that motivation stuff. Yeah, the question was, what if I can't even get started on that? And so, yeah, Jordan Peterson, he was sort of going through that whole, like, okay, you're so useless. Motivation is useless if you're not in the right state of mind. Sort of, but you can hack your psychology. And so what he was saying is, like, you know, okay, you need to make your goal smaller. Like, what if you just log in? That could be like, that's good enough for today. At least you did something. It's better than nothing. And then, you know, he went through a whole bunch of steps like, okay, what if it's been so long you've forgotten your password? Okay, what can you go back through your email and find it? And maybe that's the one task that you can do. You know, like, you've got to keep making the task as small as possible. So at least you do something. And that's better than nothing. And then maybe the next day you set a goal to do a little bit more. And that, like, it's a very standard psychology thing. The way he phrased it, though, I think that's what got me thinking about it again. But then I didn't think about it for a while. And then I'm in session with this chick and I'm like, look, I know with motivation, you know, I just need to do something small. But she sort of dismissed it as like, that's a time management thing. And, you know, she seemed so convincing at the time. But when I think about it, no, it's not just a time management thing. It's like overcoming that difficulty barrier, like bringing it down so that the little motivation I have is able to get started. And then, you know, like once you get started on something, maybe that's all you do, but there is a chance that you'll get carried away. And then you'll actually do a lot and it can actually turn into something productive. And so I think I need to hack my psychology in that kind of way. Whereas, I don't know, like EMDR, I don't think it's appropriate for what my issue is. And the motivation, like, I don't think that's anything to do with dissociation. And I don't see how mucking with my memories, reprocessing memories, like, yeah, it sucks what I went through, the childhood trauma, you know, glass child stuff. And I'm still sort of living in the same situation. But it's not like someone who's been through violence or that kind of abuse. It's very different, you know, and for a lot of them, they would have to escape that situation to begin healing. And then, you know, like there's some genuine trauma, PTSD type stuff there, but that's not what I'm going through. And so I think, like, you know, using the more standard psychology way of getting past motivational blocks to just do something, just do a little bit every day, because, you know, a little bit adds up after a while, and then there is the chance that I'll get carried away. That does happen to me. So, you know, I think standard psychology has more to say for me in that sense. Yeah, how did I get onto that rant about motivation? I guess because I've got so many things that I need to do. I want to do whatever. And then I've got all these video ideas, like there's this full-on list, and I've actually forgotten what some of them are even about, because I didn't put enough detail, but oh well, I'll just move on to the ones that I do remember. Yeah, I need to do, like, just chip away at things, and yeah, okay, forgive myself when I have a bad day, because they do happen, and that does slow me down, and that sucks, that's frustrating, but, you know, to keep moving forward, and try not to think about, you know, wanting to not be here anymore. I want to try and avoid that, at least from a logical perspective, because, like, yeah, when I talk about things that, like, you know, not having any interest in anything, you know, like, the logical part of my mind, I can see why things are worth doing, but it's more that emotional part of my mind that doesn't want to do anything, and it's hard to get those things to match. But yeah, anyway, yeah, wow, Jordan Peterson, haven't seen any of his stuff in a while, but that was quite an old video that came up. And now I'm thinking about Kermit the Frog again, because he is Kermit the Frog, isn't he? Interestingly, I do clean my room every week, but it's not because of him, and I do fold my clothes nicely, but it's not because of that Marie Kondo chick. It's just, all this stuff is just coincidence, and then I find out that there's some guru out there telling people to do this stuff anyway. But yeah, the Kermit the Frog one about cleaning your room, that one makes me laugh. Oh man, what a voice. I hope I don't sound like anything that whimsical, but I guess it would depend on what mood I'm in. And I know, apparently I sound like a child as well, which is, you know, I was on the phone to someone, I can't remember when this happened, but I was on the phone to someone, and, you know, I think they asked me how old I was, and that's when I realized, actually, I must sound a bit like a child still. I think it depends on the situation, though, and I know, oh my gosh, so, oh shit, I forgot to call the dissociation specialist receptionist, because I still need to pay for that session, because she'd already left by the time I came out yesterday. I'll do that. Try and remember to do that tomorrow. Better write myself a note. pay for DID thing, blah. Maybe that'll remind me, hopefully. I'm sure they'll chase me up if I forget completely. Because if they assume I have DID, maybe I have no memory that I'm supposed to pay them. Anyway, what was I just talking about there? How did I get onto that? Oh no, I completely lost my train of thought. I was talking about motivation, psychology. Shit, can someone catch me up on what I was talking about before I got distracted by paying the dissociation people? Oh dear. Jordan Peterson, Kermit the Frog, cleaning my room, Marie Kondo, gurus, talking about stuff. No, I can't remember what I was talking about. Damn. And I was just making a joke about memory loss too, which is even more embarrassing. Oh my god. Dang, I genuinely can't remember where I was going. Yeah, I don't know. Cleaning your room. Of course, I like cleaning my room is more like vacuuming the carpet, and cleaning my bathroom. It's not so much like, obviously all this stuff has been here for ages, but maybe tomorrow I'll actually get things into some kind of order and be able to do art again and music again and try and get on top of all these different hobbies that I have and try and be more productive and more motivated. And was I talking about something to do with the disconnect between emotion and logic, or did I already cover that? I don't know. Who's watching? Can someone tell me where to pick up the thread? Oh dear. You're not very talkative at the moment. Oh, I need someone to help me figure out what I was on about. No. Well, if no one's got anything, if no one's gonna remind me and no one has any more questions, maybe I should wrap it up there. Because maybe I should watch Danny Phantom. It's only 20-minute episodes. I feel like I'm wearing makeup, and I know I'm not, like, you know, eyeliner, because usually when I'm wearing spikes, I think that's a thing I'd do is the... But yeah, I'm prickly on the inside too. Very romantic t-shirt. Wearing the spikes, because no one can hug me. And yeah, so I did have the Valentine's patron saint, not just of love and couples and marriages, but also of fainting, beekeepers, and the mentally ill, apparently, although I don't know how accurate that is, plague, epilepsy in some random place. Yeah, that's down here. And it sounds like February 14th is the day that he was killed, I think. So, and, you know, apparently, I think not in a very nice way. So you can go and have a look on Wikipedia if you're into that. Merch! Don't forget I have merch. But the Stream Elements bot has dropped the ball again. Anyway, so yeah, I think you guys have all gone quiet, and so maybe I will wrap it up, and I'll go back to watching Danny Phantom and see if I can finish season 2. There's also a season 3, but seasons 1 and 2 have the episodes that I'm most into, and that's fine. So yeah, recapping, I got my PO box. I'll make a video about that. I got new t-shirts. I meet again Nemesis and the one down there, and got me controller, presents to myself. Yeah, and I do tend to like keep things until I can show them on YouTube and don't unwrap them until I can. It's sort of a funny little habit. Yeah, not sure about the dissociation specialist. I think I'll wait until after I've seen my regular psych, like the one that I've transitioned to from last year's psychologist. I'm going to talk to her about stuff, get her kind of opinion, see what she wants to do, what kind of work she wants to do with me, what she thinks might be worth doing. Because I really don't think EMDR is the right work. And parts work, like, if the dissociation specialist was going to address the part of me that's most relevant, maybe that would be worth doing. But it really does seem like she wants to address my emotional detachment as, like, with parts work. And I just don't think that's, you know, useful or helpful, or I don't know, maybe this is some of the schizoid resistance to therapy. You could try arguing that, but I think my concerns are valid, and we'll see what the normal psychologist thinks before I make a decision. And then also I have the psychiatrist lined up for next month, so there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm trying to get my life back into some kind of reliable pattern, because I haven't been able to go back to work yet, because every time I feel like I'm starting to do okay and maybe I should ring my boss and, you know, organize to at least come back, maybe not starting as early as normal, but like maybe a half day and build my way up. Every time I think that, something happens and I have a really bad day and I get into a really non-functional state, and I just realize I'm not ready to go back to work. And so I've got to try and get some stability. And yeah, it's tough, and I don't understand why I'm having so much trouble doing it this time. And maybe like the gap over the holidays in terms of psychologists and all that, maybe that didn't help. And yeah, I don't know. I just gotta keep pushing through, and, you know, hopefully tomorrow I will be functional enough to get all this, you know, stuff about my room sorted and set up the other room. I really hope I'll be functional tomorrow, but it's a gamble, and often when I have a better day, the next day is not so good. And I did have that moment today where I finally was just like, right, I'm getting the PO box thing sorted, and it got done. And so I just know that that's not how I'm going to be tomorrow. And so hopefully I don't crash too bad, but yeah, you know. Alright, so I think I will wrap this up, because I've given you plenty of time to say anything else. What music should we go out? So the music that I tried to play when I started the stream was Navigating the Nightmare. That's from my Asexuality EP, which seemed like an appropriate one to pick. Let me find that EP. It seemed like an appropriate one to pick given the Valentine's Day thing. I'll just share that in the chat. But yeah, Navigating the Nightmare, because a new EP? No, this is an old EP. I don't have enough material for a new EP. I do have like a song I could finish working on. Once I get the music room set up, I could release that new track. I want to re-record the vocals, because I also didn't double track the vocals, so I'm probably going to have to re-record the whole thing to make it consistent. But like, that track's basically ready to go, and I think it's one of the best tracks that I've written. Like, I like it, and I think it uses more of my voice. So yeah, want to release that at least this year. Oh my god, I haven't finished proofreading the poetry either. Oh dear, there's just so much stuff to keep track on. I'm so chaotic. Yeah, but no, so the track I was playing at the start of the stream, but didn't finish because I realized I was already live and I didn't actually have my start screen up. Whoopsie daisy. Yeah, no, I was playing Navigating the Nightmare because that song is about, like, how, you know, the world is saturated with all this love imagery, romance, sexuality, all that kind of stuff, and so that's why I played that, because the song's very relevant. But you can go onto my Bandcamp, check out my Asexuality EP, play that song, and you'll also be able to see the lyrics and you'll get the gist. It's not too explicit, I don't think, because the whole point of that EP was to not go with asexual stereotypes. Like, if you've ever looked up asexual music, I don't know if anyone's released anything good since I made that EP, but a lot of it is just like, they're trying to use, like, normal sexual culture, but changing it for asexuality, or else it's really lame stuff and, like, you know, jokes about cake and all those real stereotypes within the asexuality community, and then, like, really basic production most of the time, and people just mucking around on... I don't know, it's really bad. Most of the asexual music I've came across... I don't think I've come across any asexual music, like, explicitly asexual music that I like. I don't think I've ever come across any of it, so I wanted to, like, not make those mistakes in my EP when I did that for uni. And so the only time asexuality itself is mentioned explicitly is in the title of the EP. In the songs, it's not. Yeah, when you read the lyrics, like, you will understand what it's about, in the context of it being an asexuality EP, but if you didn't have that context, you might think it was about something else. And I like having those kinds of double meanings, letting you reinterpret things your own way if you want to. That's kind of interesting to me. But yeah, that's what that song was. But so to leave this live stream, seeing as I've sort of like, you know, had a go at the dissociation specialist, maybe I'll play for you The Psychologist. The Psychologist, so this song is about my my second psychologist, and she, you know, when I went in there, I told her I was asexual, and her first response was to ask, are you sure you're not just gay? And like, yes. And you know, even since then, when I have dated, it's been guys. I don't know if that's just coincidence or if that's like, you know, what I would have been. Like, I now realize that maybe asexuality is part of the schizoid thing, and maybe I wouldn't have turned out this way if I'd had more of a normal childhood. Who knows? Too late to find out. But yeah, maybe if I had developed normally, maybe I would have been straight. I don't know. But yeah, no, when I went in and she's like, you sure you're not just gay? And I'm like, and so she kind of pushed me into like the relationship thing, and like a lot of people were at the time, to be fair, because asexuality wasn't as well known as it is now. You don't have these communities so much, didn't have those communities as much as you do today. Yeah, and so like I was often getting comments like, you know, you just haven't met the right person yet, or you'll understand when you're older, and blah blah blah. So she was sort of in that crowd, and when I did start dating my ex, you know, she really had that attitude of like, I told you so. But then when the relationship went to shit and I was explaining what I now understand to be really quite toxic stuff, she told me to stay with him because at least you weren't bored, which is a really bad reason to stay in a relationship. And so, yeah, I ended up, like, I was gaslighting myself enough, and he was gaslighting me, and then my psychologist was essentially sort of gaslighting me, or, you know, that I was getting a lot of bad advice at the time. And also, this psychologist was the one that I first said, what about schizoid personality disorder? And she read to me a case study, and I didn't exactly fit the case study because, you know, I guess by then I was already trying to break out of the overt presentation, but like I also just wasn't doing the things that this specific case study said. And yeah, worst psych advice ever. Yeah, like, sorry. Because I didn't fit this exact profile, like going into the bushes and with a sketch pad or whatever, like, she said that she ruled out schizoid personality disorder and didn't really go in depth with me about why I thought maybe I had it and brought it up. So I didn't bring it up again until last year. And I only brought it up with my GP to say this has been ruled out. And then a week later we came back to, you know, what are we going to do? And we'd both gone, actually, that fits really well. So it's kind of funny how that happened in the end. But this song is about that psychologist who, are you sure you're not just gay? Stay with this toxic relationship because at least you're not bored. And also, you can't possibly have schizoid. She was wrong about everything. So let's play that, because I've also just sort of, you know, the dissociation specialist, maybe she helps people who legitimately have DID, assuming DID is a legitimate thing. Maybe she does help people, but I think she's not interpreting me in the right way, and I don't know if I'm going to go back. So, let's play the song that shits on psychologists, and I know that was a bit of a long-winded way to get into it, but thanks for joining me on this live stream, and I'll try to give more warning next time I plan to do it, although I'm probably going to live stream games for the next while, if I can get my shit together to even do it at all. I'll try and make some of those other videos. Yeah, you quiet people, leave me some comments, especially if you're watching in the replay. Should I get into lockpicking, for example, and any other thoughts? This is the psychologist, and I'll see you whenever. Next time. I won't see you because I can't actually see you through the webcam, but you know what I mean. You'll see me next time. This is very Android Lust inspired. And I'll see you guys later. Does this work?